News Weekly.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Batman News Weekly. This is episode 197 in year 4. And today, it might get a little spicy and heated because, man, if you're in the Discord, there's been some discourse on some topics. So we're going to go into that. Clay, you might want to let people know if you sound a little different.
Yeah, so I'm going to be house sitting for the next 2 weeks up until July 5th. So if you hear something a little off on my audio, I'm in a different room that isn't really specified for me recording. So that is going to be a thing. And also, just because my dog has huge anxiety problems, thanks to my wife, he is with me in this one room. So hopefully he doesn't cause any mayhem. And my daughter is taking a nap, so we gotta do this as quickly as possible and whatnot, but everything should be good to go. Just wanted to let you guys know in case you're like, oh, why does your microphone sound so weird, why is Clay sound off and all that stuff. We are aware, and it will be fixed by July. So
we just want to let y'all know that in case there's any comments about it. But we're going to go ahead and just dive right into this, ladies and gentlemen, because, first off, I want to start off and say I was wrong. And I don't remember what your thoughts on this were, Clay, but I thought The Flash was going to be a success. And it looks like it is, at the moment, bombing.
Yeah, so we were kind of back and forth. Very early on, we had talked about we should be hesitant on if we really want this to be like a big success due to all the stuff that was happening to Ezra Miller at the time. And we were very confused as of like, how are they going to market this thing? It's come out to be marketing, like budget plus marketing is in the ballpark of like $350 million, which is absolutely insane. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a complete bomb. It is reaching just below, but not worse than Shazam 2, which we saw and we enjoyed, but the rest of the world did not. So it seems like it's going the same route for The Flash, and it is absolutely insane.
Yeah, which is crazy because after Shazam came out, I saw so many people on Twitter being like, yo, this film was actually dope. And it's unfortunate. They're like, I should have saw this in theaters. Or like, oh, this was way better than the internet said it was. Which is going to be part of our discussion that we're going to have here right now. Because there's a lot going on, man. Like, it's not like, obviously, you can't say that The Flash is a success right now. I thought Batman could carry The Flash. And it just goes to show Batman ain't that strong. But there might be reasons why. And we're going to dive into that. But let's go ahead and knock out the biggest thing this week, because we talked about this last week. And it was the idea of, I was very strong against what James Gunn, his approach to, I guess this is two different things. Oh, this is the same thing. Your topic of discussion here is, was James Gunn wrong in his approach towards the DCU? I'm very hated at the moment because of the ending of The Flash. You were taking a different perspective on this, it seems like. So do you want to give your opinion on this first?
Yeah, so this comes from the discussion that we had last episode. We had it at the very end because it was going to give spoilers for The Flash. So again, we will put a caveat on spoilers here.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, honestly, whoever wanted to see the movie has already seen it. Whoever doesn't want to watch the movie is not going to see it. So I don't think we need to push the spoiler warning too far. I think for sure next week, I think we're good to go. But just want to go ahead and shout it out now. But we had a spoiler-filled discussion after our review due to the fact that something at the end of the movie does, in fact, cause a lot of people concern and confusion to what James Gunn's words were in regards to his DC universe. And for me, whenever I was watching this interview, of course, on the Inside of You podcast with Michael Rosenbaum, Gunn had explained, okay, well, the Flash resets thing, or this is more so towards his announcement video, Flash resets everything. But then on the podcast, he's like, oh, well, Blue Beetle is our first DCU character. Then later on in the interview, he said Superman is the first DCEU movie. And then later on in the podcast, he says, oh, well, Creature Commandos is actually the first DCU project.
Yeah.
And again, Juice was saying, that's confusing. That's not really telling me anything. And I just took it for verbatim what he was saying. And my explanation of it was, okay, Blue Beetle is the only character that is going to be moved from what we consider the DCEU era into the DCU. Creature Commandos is going to be the very first project that they actually work on that is entitled DCU. And Superman Legacy is going to be the first theatrical release of the DCU era. That's just how I see things, especially now, due to the fact that Flash isn't doing good. If this is any indication for Gunn to be like, yeah, I think Ezra's out, like this is definitely probably his sign that hey, Ezra's not going to be the Flash.
Yeah. I put an article in the Discord saying that a lot of people think the reason why it's failing is because people feel like these 4 films don't matter. Because they're like, well, this thing's getting reset. Why should we go watch these films? Which was the biggest problem that a lot of people said when that first slate came out. And I think that's why people were like, oh. And I think this was the problem why James Gunn, I think this adds to the idea of maybe in hindsight, right? Because it's so, like when that first thing came out, we were like, dude, this is the way you launch a new thing, yada, yada. Like we were very positive of it.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I think it was probably bad that he didn't clarify who's coming to the next universe. Instead of like, he should have been like, hey, we're changing. We're not going to have Superman. We're not going to have Batman. But Ezra's coming back. Aquaman's coming back. Instead of playing this like, well, let's wait and see. And I understand business-wise why they probably did that. But I think you just... Because the DC is so toxic right now, or the DCU with, Snyder Bros. And people are like, oh, I'm just going to wait for the new universe. And people that still love the old universe, or people that just love Gal Gadot or just love Harley Quinn. And they're like, well, I don't want them to go. And it's just very toxic. James Gunn should have just fucking put his dick on the table and been like, these are people are coming back. These people are not. Affleck's not coming back. Cavill's not coming back. We want Gal back. We want, Harley back and a bunch of other people. He didn't do that. He left it too open-ended. And it points me back to Raphael was very against James Gunn saying a lot of stuff or not being clear enough. And I was very against. I was like, I think you're reading too much into it or whatever. He might have a bigger point now, because now I'm just like, you know what? I kind of see that. He's not being very clear. And I think when you allow too many people to talk, it's a problem, which sucks because we thought James Gunn was going to be somebody that clears everything up, but it seems like he's adding to the confusion. And I think that's a big deal, a big problem. But I do want to clarify. I understand how you view the things, because I understand that, yes, it is the first project. It is going to be the first film. I hate the idea of like, oh yeah, he's in the first I don't think you should have to do the clarification that you had to do just now. You know what I mean? And that's the problem, because a movie / film is what you're watching in theaters. And if you're saying Blue Beetle's going to be a part of it, well, that's a film, James Gunn. Why isn't that the first one? But I think it's because James Gunn wants to start with his movie. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, because he, just in case there was like, oh, the Batman is a fascist joke. We didn't okay that joke. That was a previous thing, but Blue Beetle's still cool. He's going to bring him over. Because at the moment,
even so, which would break my heart, if Blue Beetle underperforms and they see it as a, hey, like it's a no-go on this character.
Yeah.
If Zaslav decides like, I didn't like it enough, or like the numbers weren't big enough, they could definitely just throw that character away and be like, oh, this is the DCU starting with, Creature Commandos and then Superman. Boom.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing. I just feel like as I've been replaying Gunn's words back and forth, he's shooting himself in the foot a lot, because don't forget, like if all of these movies bomb, right? like we could say so many reasons why the Flash is bombing, right? The film is good. So many people are like, dude, yeah, 7 to 8 out of 10. Like, that's a good film. That is not an average film. And like, even people that I thought were going to be really critical of it, like somebody like Moist Critical, who I watch a lot, he gave it like a 7 out of 10. And I was just like, oh damn. I was like, he actually liked it. And he usually talks a lot of shit about superhero movies. And so my thing is remember how Gunn said, like, oh, if a movie bombs or whatever, we're just going to move on. Like, we're not going to try to reset. So there's not really an excuse not to bring those people back or to try something new. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you also mentioned, too, that it seems like Blue Beetle is going to be the first person that's going to come over from the DCEU. Well, in that same interview, Gunn said that Amanda Waller and Peacemaker are coming back. They're not recasting them. So it's just like, again, it's just like, bro, what are you talking about, James Gunn? Like, now, and then obviously you've mentioned this too. You're like, oh, well, yeah, everybody from James Gunn's projects are definitely coming back. And I'm like, again, he's not clarifying any of that. And I think it's a problem. But no, my biggest hang up, because I am totally cool with James Gunn just rebooting, like casting everybody new and doing all that. Cause I thought that's what you should have done from the start. And it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case because he's already confirmed Sholo's coming to the thing. So I'm like, well, you can't go back on that now. And my biggest thing is, all right, I'd rather you reboot. I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to be that soft reboot. My thing is story. Something I have constantly bitched about on this podcast for the last 4 years. I care about story. Yeah. And nothing you tell me outside of a movie or a comic book matters. I don't care about your explanation outside of it. It's okay if I don't understand it, like fucking something like Inception. I'm like, oh shit, okay, I didn't understand that, but like, oh, you're these things were in the movie. Like, I don't know if you've heard the theory of Inception where they say his totem is actually his ring and not.
Yeah, I've heard so many explanations on how to interpret the ending of Inception. Yes. And we were kind of in that same realm when having this discussion about the Flash, right? We were talking about, okay, well, it can be implied, and that was the big word, and you were like, well, that's it kind of has to slap you right in the face. Especially when it comes to something like this. And I since our discussion, I've thought a lot about it, and I understand that these things kind of do need to be slapped in the face, especially when it's a IP that definitely needs to grow and doesn't quite have the luxury of like, hey, you got to figure it out. Like, it kind of has to be written on the wall so people are like, oh, I get it. Let's move forward with that. But it's just something that I saw and I was like, okay, like this can be a swan song type of movie and be like, okay, this is it for the DCEU. But I can see, because of the ending, people are like, all right, this is the way things are going to go from now on. Yeah.
And by the story of the ending, because like, it's not just me. I've actually seen people talk about this on Twitter a lot. Everybody's like, so George Clooney's Batman. And everybody's like, no, James Gunn's already said that's not going to happen. We already have confirmation again that that's not going to be happening. But I'm like, if a lot of people are thinking that that's how your movie was portrayed, perception is a thing. And you need to take that into consideration. So as of right now, George Clooney is a fascist, according to George Lopez. So like, and this is my problem. I am totally cool with the idea of somebody coming in. Like, let's just say, because we're going to be talking about something else. There is a current movie that is getting some reshoots right now. If those reshoots come in and explain who the new person is or how it's working, or it's a new timeline, I will be like, okay, that's what we needed. That's what I need.
But here's the thing, though. Does it count because it's after the fact?
Well, so here's the thing.
Technically, it'll be in the movie.
Yes.
But due to the fact that, like, you could easily say, because technically Jason Momoa did not, send those pictures until after the Flash had premiered. So you could easily say, hey, it's in reception of this. So, whatever. But could you have a cop out of saying like, oh, this doesn't really count because you're trying to just correct your fuck up?
No. I think they should correct their fuck up. It's what they need to do. So like like right now, I have no problem if they plan this 10 years in advance or if they just did it this weekend because of the backlash. If they have seen the perception, they're like, oh, people didn't understand the joke, because I think that's what they meant it to be, was a nice little like cheeky cameo, right?
100%.
But it's not how people are perceiving it. And that's the problem, right? Because here's the thing. We know one thing as being on social media a lot, right? People often say things and they didn't mean it in a certain way, but it gets perceived a certain way. Where like if you say something about a minority group that you're like, no, I didn't mean it like that. Like, no. They're like, well, that's how it fucking came off. And you're just like, oh, fuck. And you have to go through that, right? I've been through it. I've been through it on TikTok. It's bad. And so the problem is you have to clear those things up. And that's kind of where I'm coming from, is I think a lot of people are like, oh shit. Because here's the thing. George Clooney looked good, right? He did.
He looked really good. And honestly, like, and I heard a lot of people say this in reviews. They're like, hey, because I've heard back and forth. A lot of people did think that, like you're saying. And then there's some people who didn't think that he was going to be the Batman moving forward. But they did say, you know what? Fuck it. I want to see it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind, like, you know, some stupid, like, if WB and DC wanted to spend the money to get a lump sum of monetization on YouTube and make like a YouTube freaking series that's like 5 minutes long each or whatever with George Clooney as Batman.
Yeah.
Or like Adventures of Bruce Wayne and he finally becomes Batman at the very end, so that way Clooney doesn't have to wear the suit for very long. That'd be dope as fuck. I don't care.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun. But I just don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think Clooney, like, and the worst part is, dude, because of the way that the reception of The Flash in the box office has kind of shown, like, people then see the box office and they're like, oh, this isn't a good movie. Clooney is gonna think he killed the franchise of Batman twice.
Yeah. He did make it confusing. He will say that. So like, and I think that's just my biggest thing. So no, I don't think it would be a cop out in like the way this podcast started, right? Whereas if Tom King brought Alfred back right away, that would have been a cop out.
Yeah.
It never happened. He's still dead. So like, I don't think it would be in this way. I think this is a course correction they need to make. And so if they're going to show something, like if they show something in Blue Beetle where Flash shows up and he's like, is this like who's Batman here? And they're like, oh, we don't know his identity. He's like, oh, okay. And then, like, you know, he does something like that. You got to give me something that explains it, you know, and it has to be in a movie because that's where you started it. And the problem is, like, I think, I mean, you're more the MCU guy, but I feel like a lot of people aren't necessarily watching all the shows. So if you're throwing some really important information in there, like the AI fest that is happening with Secret Wars, I don't know how important that's going to be. But like, if people don't watch that, and then there's a movie that you really needed to watch that, they're gonna be like, oh, what happened? Like, why is there such a time jump? You know what I mean?
Well, and for the most part, when looking at the MCU movies and TV shows, as of right now, the only thing that has kind of been touched upon for any of the shows and the movies that have come out since they started the shows, nothing has really kind of dabbled too much into it. It's kind of just like how we see the miniseries at DC Comics or Marvel.
Yeah.
You know, some of them can be impactful, but a lot of them are just like, let's just write the story and have fun. I think there may have just been one show so far that like had one reference, but nothing major. I think, honestly, they have called Secret Invasion the first series event. So I think this show will have more impactful things moving forward than anything else that has come out, whether that be She-Hulk, freaking Hawkeye. Well, actually, I think the What If series was kind of a big major thing that showed up in Multiverse of Madness, but it was more of like a wink and a nod, not necessarily confirmation of any of those characters being in that movie.
Yeah. I am surprised Marvel hasn't tried this, but I'm assuming they put a decent amount of money into Secret Invasion, right? if it is supposed to be something that's big. Well, they didn't do that for the intro. Because
for sure.
it's
But like
AI.
it when you look at the cast within itself is big. Amelia Clark. You have Samuel L. Jackson. You have what's his name from Sherlock and the Hobbit movies.
The agent, right?
Yeah. You have a lot of big names coming from Secret Invasion. So I definitely see that as a bigger show.
They does that comes out weekly, right? I don't know Disney's release schedule.
It is weekly.
I wonder
first episode was out yesterday.
If they could have done something along the lines of where they're like, all right, we're going to release one episode weekly in theaters and make the tickets like super cheap, like $3 tickets. And people can go watch it in theaters with nice sound and stuff. And then like maybe like a month later, it comes out on Disney Plus. I wonder if that model could work. See, because I think because here's the thing. My thing is, if it's something you need people to pay attention to, you should try to put it in theaters, even if it's just like a fandom event, like something like that that's real short, because then it's like, oh, this is big, you should go watch it. Whereas Disney Plus, I feel like people are like, I'm not gonna pay for that service, so I don't care. You know what I mean?
But see, I think there's more people nowadays, especially just with the lack of success for a lot of different films, which by the way, freaking Spider-Verse, Transformers, Flash, and one other movie, I think
Elemental. If you're talking about bad movies or
box office wise. No, but I'm saying like you have 4 major studios putting out summer blockbusters. Juice, when we were a kid, summer blockbusters were maybe 1 or 2 movies.
Yeah.
Not a movie every single week. That's why you're not going to make $1 billion on every movie if there's a movie every single week, if not 2 every single week. It's kind of getting out of hand, honestly. In which I think, honestly, both Marvel and DC should kind of push back and be like, hey, we're going to put only 2 movies out there a year and separate them. So that way there's a large margin that you could actually profit on. But what I was trying to get at is a lot of people, because of the way things are with a lot of movies coming out very, very frequently, a lot of people like, I'll just wait until it's streaming.
Yeah. No, I believe that. I started doing that for comic book shows. I'm catching up on The Walking Dead right now, which side rant, I said this on my stream last night. I am really fucking tired of these streaming services not getting all the seasons of a show. That really pisses me off. So check this out. Hulu, right, is where I was watching it because I get it free with Spotify. And I was watching it with the shitty commercials. And so it was taking me long to binge that show because those commercials are like 2 minutes every like 5 minutes or some shit like that.
Yeah, it's the worst.
So, and it's the same fucking things over all the time. What happened was I got to season 6 and I've been watching it for the last maybe like, 3-4 weeks. I got to season 6 and it fucking expired on me. Like the show's gone from Hulu now. And I'm all like, okay, this was like the only place I could watch it. I found it on Amazon. I went to Amazon, spoiled the fucking next season for me because the banner has a character that I thought was dead. And I was just like, nice. Oh, wow, thanks. And so that happens. Amazon doesn't have fucking season 6. They have season 8 and like 7 and 8. And I'm just like, are you fucking shitting me? If I go to the AMC app, they have episode 1 of season 6 and not the full season. And I'm like, y'all produced the show. And here's the thing. I have to do this with Food Wars. I've been trying to finish Food Wars forever. I have to go to like a website that has all of them because fucking HBO Max has like seasons 4 and 5. Crunchyroll has seasons like 1 through 3. And like, I'm just like, what the fuck, dude? Like, where can I watch the whole show? And if this is what I'm telling you, and if an executive is listening to this podcast for some reason, this is the reason why people pirate shit is because you don't have it all in one space.
100%.
Yeah, I was like, dude, like I cannot find Food Wars. I've never been able to finish Food Wars because it's nowhere else. Fucking sucks. So yeah, the streaming stuff does make sense. I do think Disney should try out that model. I think people want to go watch something in person like that. Because I would be, because I think Game of Thrones might have tried that once or twice, where like they did episodes in theaters, which I think might be, I mean, kind of cool. Like if something's popular enough, you know what I mean?
I could easily see them doing the season premiere
Mm-hmm.
and then the series finale. Like,
Yeah.
I think that could be very like, hey, you know, just get the theater experience for this one show.
Yeah.
And then, because like, I don't know if you can convince people to go to the theater every single week. Again, like, even if
Yeah,
it's
true.
cheap, it's,
Mhm.
I think that is kind of rough within itself. But if you space it out, hey, you get a movie right now, an
Mhm.
hour, you know, 15 minutes or 55 minutes, I think was the last episode of Secret Invasion, or the first episode.
Yeah.
And then 4 to 8 weeks down the line, you have another movie that you get to go to.
Mhm.
And I think that would be a good way to go.
I think you make the tickets cheaper because it is a TV show, right? You're not planning on really, you're making most of your money off of advertisements from that kind of stuff. So any ticket prices, I think, is already a bonus. I don't know how the movie industry works. I don't know if you got to buy a slot or whatever, but I think theaters want more people to go anyways. So they probably work out a deal that's like, oh, we could both profit from this. But here's the thing. Imagine this. You know, maybe you only do it once or twice a week, right? Maybe if it's on Sundays, you do it on Sundays, whatever. But after that, and I don't know if this would have to be like a new theater, like you'd have to consider a new theater, but I think it'd be kind of cool to where you host these shows. Let's just say like it's something like as big as Game of Thrones. Right after the movie lets out, there's like an after party for people to talk about the show, and maybe there's food and shit. Like they can buy food at this place. I think that's kind of cool.
It gives you the water cooler moment.
Yeah.
To really, I mean, and that's the one thing that I feel like a lot of people are missing.
Mm-hmm.
The water cooler effect it's still happening, but not as frequently. A lot more people are trying to find remote jobs. The word of mouth is really the caveat, or the opposite, or not the opposite. What am I trying to say? It's in replace of the water cooler effect.
Yeah.
And it's all online. And when it comes to these conversations, a lot of people joke around and be like, hey, you guys need to go touch grass. You need to go outside.
Yeah.
You need to have actual interactions, which I think would be good for these things. It would be kind of odd, to be honest, to be like, hey, now you guys get to hang out with us and talk about the show or whatever. But I think the overall thought of having a Fathom event for these things could work. It's just convincing the studio, because I don't think it's the studio that would be the one, hey, we really need to do this. I think it would be the theaters or your producers or, you know, your director, or whoever brings up the idea to the studio. It's like, hey, you need to put this in the theater.
Yeah, I think, because I do think that would be a way to rejuvenate like smaller theaters. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of small theaters out there that are like 3 screens, 4 screens, something like that. And they'd be like, oh yeah, we do a weekly show. And then I think that would be kind of cool. Because I think there's probably a lot of people that want to talk about shit. Granted, I don't think there's a lot of like, I mean, it would just take one person to be like an asshole in that kind of situation. People are like, I don't want to do this anymore. But I think it'd be kind of cool. It's like, yo, yeah, we're doing like an after party or whatever. And if they had like a party room or something, that'd be kind of cool. Be like, yeah, let's just talk about it. But I don't know. Maybe that's something. I think somebody should try that. I know Netflix is apparently trying to open a theater or something somewhere. So
they are. But I also just heard that the Academy is making the requirements for awards have longer release windows for theaters, basically trying to push out Netflix.
Oh, well, I mean, wouldn't Netflix be able to host their shit though? Like, well, I guess you're saying, I mean, they would just push it later. I feel like, you know, I think as long as it shows up on Netflix. I mean, Netflix just did the biggest ballsy move ever and won by forcing everybody to do the password thing. Everybody's like, oh, Netflix is fucking dead. And they got like fucking 8 bajillion signups after that.
Yeah, it actually worked, which is actually pretty wild.
which sucks because now everybody like HBO Max is like, oh, okay, Netflix did that, so now we can do that. You know what I mean? Which is gonna blow. So that means everybody else is gonna have to force out password sharing because it only takes it to work once, and then everybody else and their mom does it, right?
Yep.
That's why I'm hoping humanity is. I don't know if you've ever heard about this. I hope humanity is not stupid enough to do this, but there are car companies that are starting to have like services that you need to pay for your car monthly. Like if you want heated seats.
Oh yeah. I've
I
heard about
hope
that.
people are not dumb enough for that. Because then that'll be just like a standard too, which you can never own. It's your fucking car. You should be able to own everything in it. Anyways, getting off topic. So yeah, it's like I said, we had a heated discussion for a while. It's been a few days since we've actually talked about the topic. So is your perspective still the same to the point where it's like, I know it's going to change, or like Superman is the first movie. Is that how you're viewing it right now?
I think so. Especially now that we have seen the way the world has reacted to the Flash.
Mm-hmm.
Now it could definitely change. I say definitely change. I will still say Superman is the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on how the story goes, on how they introduce or have Blue Beetle interact with the new Superman.
Yeah.
Or with the new characters of the DCU. Like, how early do we get a Blue Beetle sequel and have it, be alongside the heroes that we're going to see within the DCU?
Yeah. And this is going to be I will not be able to understand where James Gunn is coming from. I don't know if I said James come there. But he's definitely not going to be coming from there. But like, I won't understand where he's trying to take the DCU until I do see Superman, because how are you going to say it's a new universe? You know what I mean? Because we've had theories, because he's kind of hinting at the Little Mermaid icon, right? That Vigilante might be in Superman. So it's like, okay, so if Vigilante's here, and if it's played by the same actor, because they've had to switch Vigilante before. If it's played by the same actor, then it's like, okay, everything that's happened in Peacemaker is okay. But then somebody's gonna be like, well, actually, Flash reset everything. So it's like, oh, okay. So what makes sense here? Like, is everything that happened in Peacemaker actually a thing? I've heard a lot of people saying like, oh, when they do Peacemaker 2, they're probably going to oh my God, what's his name? The mask guy that thinks of everything.
Psycho Pirate.
Yeah, they're like, oh, what if they Psycho Pirate him? I'm like, no, please don't. They're like, what if John Cena is the only one that remembers what the old universe looked like? Some people are like, maybe he has a helmet for that. You know what I mean?
Those were like the very first theories, actually.
Yeah.
That John Cena was gonna be the kind of Psycho Pirate within Peacemaker, which would have been kind of weird, but apparently, and one thing that I've noticed, and I think more so, Gunn is very much seeing the toxicity of Twitter. He has a Blue Sky account also, which is only in beta, and you can only get in via invite. So it's getting populated. He's getting questions quite frequently, but he's only answering questions via Blue Sky right now.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot on Twitter. It's only being regurgitated via Twitter. But we did see Home of DC pointed out, James Gunn, when asked how Peacemaker will work after the reboot, he said, "You'll have to wait and see."
Yeah.
So he has some sort of plan to make it all make sense. It's just the fact that we have to be patient and wait and see.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, until he does that, it doesn't make sense with what he's saying, is what I'll say. And I think that's where I'm coming from. If James Gunn clears it all up, I'll be like, okay, cool. Because I said this. Everybody knows. Anybody that watched me with the Flash knows what happened at the end of season 2. I fucking went off because it didn't make any fucking sense. Timeline-wise, multiverse, all that shit. Didn't make any sense. They finally corrected it 3 seasons later, if I'm not mistaken, when I already stopped covering the show. And people are like, you're going to do a video? I'm like, bro, I haven't been reviewing the show for like a year. Like, no, I'm not going to. But James Gunn can clear it all up. But you do need to explain that, because as of right now, with the current story, George Clooney is Batman. That's the only way I see it. And until he clears that up, It won't make any sense. And if he just shows a new Batman and there's no explanation, I will call that out until the end of time. Like I will, because it's just such a big plot hole. I think it's so dumb. And so I'm hoping that he fixes it.
Here's the other thing though. If you start to see from the very beginning, that being Blue Beetle, Superman, Creature Commandos, that this new DCU has a completely different look and different feel. We see Barry or Wally, whatever, new actor. We don't see Miller at all. Like, wouldn't you be able to just say, oh, this is something completely different?
I would if this was like 15 years ago, Clay, because that's how we used to do it, right? But now everything's a connected universe, and James Gunn has said that too. And the thing is this new Flash movie, it showed us the old universe and explained to us a new one. You know what I mean? That's my problem. We got the spaghetti analogy. You know what I mean? That movie loves spaghetti. You know what I mean? And so, like, that's kind of my problem, is they fed us all of this crap, and they did it very well, in my opinion. I've never really heard the spaghetti analogy for a multiverse, where there's interconnected things, where some things are meant to happen or whatever. I've always went with the Doctor Who one, because I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, because everything can change forwards, backwards, whatever. And like, you know, that's kind of how it goes. Well, actually, does Doctor Who include how it affects both ways, or is it just the past? Because the way they explain it in the DC universe is that fixed point affects both ways going each way. So like your past and your future changes, not just whatever. So I don't know, but they explained it very well, in my opinion. And so they've told me that this is a new universe, and then they've hinted at Batman. Could I notice that the movies get extremely more better, and it's new style, and it's not fucking that, you know, the color captions the way Snyder does all his stuff? Sure. Like I'm all for that. And I've kind of already noticed that with Shazam and a lot of these other movies that actually have color to them and they're not oversaturated. And those are cool. But it's unfortunate that we're being force-fed connected universes now, right? So everything connects to me. Back in the day, George Clooney and fucking, you know, we were supposed to think that was all the same Batman, which it was story-wise, but they all look different. They all felt different. I'm like, oh, these are all just different Batman films. But unless it had the same actor, it didn't feel the same way. Or like Spider-Man, right? Like we knew it was completely different from Tobey Maguire to Andrew Garfield. Yeah. And like we knew that. Like there wasn't connected universes then. Marvel just connected all those bitches. So it's like, oh, now they're all connected. X-Men tried to do the same thing with Future Past or whatever. And it's just like everything's connected. So I don't think we can do that anymore. It would be nice. I just don't think we can, because they've done this. And like I said it in Discord too, I'm over the multiverse stuff already. I want solo films. Like, that's why I'm kind of excited for Blue Beetle. I am going into Blue Beetle thinking it's going to bomb already, because if Flash couldn't do well, unless the Cobra Kai people can come out in droves, I don't expect Blue Beetle to do well. That's just kind of where I'm at now. You mentioned like, oh, you feel like you're losing faith in Gunn. I have faith that Gunn is going to make good movies and where he's going to go with the thing. I just don't like that. I had high hopes for his clarity, and it looks very foggy now. Yeah. And that's my problem. So I don't know. I just want to do that because I know if anybody's in the Discord, they're like, God damn, they're going back and forth. Yeah, so there's that. But moving on to another big thing we've been talking about recently, should DC go to San Diego Comic-Con? Now, I think we both agree they should. I'm on the fence that I don't think they're going to go. So what is your perspective on that?
I think they should 100%. But I haven't been keeping up with why this would be a reason why they shouldn't go, but I've been seeing conversations say, oh, well, because of the strikes, whether that be the writer strike or the actor strike, which hasn't necessarily started yet, but because of those things, DC probably won't, NWB won't go to San Diego Comic-Con. But with the announcement that Marvel is not going to be there, and the reason being, hey, because Marvel did such a big panel last year, they're not going this year. It's like, okay, cool. That leaves the doors wide open for Gunn to go in there, announce his Superman, and announce maybe 2 or 3 more projects that he didn't announce on his announcement video. Because again, we got 10 different projects on that one announcement. And he said, oh, that's not even half.
Yeah.
So we still have a whole bunch to go in this first chapter of the DCU. So I think that it would be smart of him to get one big announcement, which everybody is waiting to see who's going to be Superman. And then just throw out, a project, whether that be a additional Green Lantern or Mr. Terrific or anybody that he hasn't really touched up on since the announcements.
Yeah, I think they should go. The reason why I don't think they'll be there is because from my knowledge, those slots are just not handed out. I don't think DC or San Diego Comic-Con's all like, oh, Marvel, we have a slot for you and it's free. Because like, for anybody that's never been in Hall H, it's a big ass hall. And 2, like, they have people working behind the scenes. They have technicians that are like, oh yeah, we're doing all this stuff. Like, that's how I snuck into Hall H, is because a person I knew a technician in there and they snuck me in. And that's how I got in and didn't have to wait in line. And I got to see the Justice League panel at the time. And so like, that's really cool. So you got to pay those people. And like, they also do rehearsals. That's how like the person had already knew like what was going to happen. That's how like, if you ever hear about the Marvel leaks, it's probably coming from technicians that are working on it. Because they're like, oh yeah, we have to play the whole thing to make sure it works. And so they see that whole shit before anybody else. And so Marvel obviously has their reasons for it. But with Zaslav, with news that just came out today, he's cutting corners, but he's cutting costs big time.
So this is a sub topic that within this because it just broke today. Me and Juice are recording a little bit later than we normally do, and so there was actually opportunity for a lot of stuff to come in before we started recording. But it has been said that Zaslav is taking a whole lot of movies and television IP stuff, and just movies in general, and selling them off to different studios and companies to, of course, stream and everything else, totaling up to $500 million.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane, including several Batman movies. So they're no longer going to have the rights for those, which is absolutely insane. Now, that doesn't mean that Batman can't be in the DCU. What it means is that like Batman 89 is no longer owned or like fully owned. I will say that because I haven't heard anything as far as contractually, but like it is now majority owned by, from what the article is saying, Sony and Universal are the 2 studios that are like up there for Zaslav to be like, hey, you guys get first pickings.
Yeah. Sony would be horrible. The only thing is like if Sony could, if that would allow them to make like an animated Batman movie, I'd be interested in seeing that. But anything else is no. But from my understanding, I didn't read the full article, but it seems like they just get the right to like distribute those movies.
Yes.
So they can't make anything with the IP.
No,
it's
they
just
can't.
being
but
able to like sell the thing.
Yeah. So like Batman 89. When you purchase Batman 89, a portion of that is no longer going to be going to WB, or again, a majority is no longer going to be going to WB. It's going to be going to either Universal or Sony.
Yeah. And maybe that's not the biggest deal. I think as long as you're like, hey, we'll sell you this, and like, yeah, you can distribute it, you can sell it to Netflix, you can do whatever, but we own the IP. So like, if we want Michael Keaton to be in all these other Batmans, like we can do that. Like, y'all don't have that right. Y'all just have the rights to distribute and sell the actual movie, right? So maybe that's what it is. They just have the rights to sell the movie. I don't know. All of that legal jargon is really confusing. Like when it comes to like the Hulk, which I think Marvel just got rights back to recently. Like the Hulk was technically owned by like Paramount. So Marvel couldn't make a solo movie, but they could have him in other movies because they own it. Was fucking confusing. So I don't understand how all that worked. The same thing with like Spider-Man, right? Like the biggest character you could have, Sony's like, we're never letting this bitch go. And so like Marvel would have to buy Sony which I don't know if they could ever do that. One, because I think governments would be like, no, that's too much, for you to buy Sony. And Sony, like, people might make them a joke when it comes to movies. People don't realize like how much anime and shit they own. Like they own pretty much everything because they own Crunchyroll and just bought Funimation, I think. Was that what they bought? No, they bought like another big popular app, right? Wasn't it Funimation? Was it Funimation?
No. I don't believe so because Crunchyroll and Funimation merged.
Yeah, because Sony, who owned Crunchyroll, bought the other one.
Oh, okay, then yeah. Then
so they own like I want to say it was something along the lines of like that is like 80% of anime or some shit like that, which is crazy to think. When it comes to streaming, I guess. But yeah, so that's I don't think Sony, like, it's not gonna be like Marvel can come out of nowhere and just buy Sony like that. Or I should say Disney, because Disney would want to be doing it. But yeah, that is insane. Also, I think some governments are starting to get a little weary of big companies buying other companies right now, because I'm hearing the Xbox Blizzard one got denied.
Yeah. I believe it was the UK was like, hey, that's sketchy. We're gonna deny you guys now, and we're gonna put another investigation out there. So Blizzard and Microsoft are still not a conjoined company yet. They feel like they might still be able to get away with it, but more and more, like these other billion-dollar companies are like, hey, you can't make more money than me, and they're gonna try to fight whatever. Looking at some of the conversations that I was having with the whole thing with WB selling everything, it's movies, TV, and music. So anything that was distributed via WB is also being sold off as well. And from what it looks like, WB is legitimately in the perfect spot to be bought by somebody, though, because of the lack of damage control that Zaslav has actually been able to implement at WB, and they're desperate for money. They are still, to this day, $49.4 billion in debt. So they kind of gotten down with everything that Zaslav has done, but it's still a lot of money. Zaslav is only there to, and this was a conversation that we had very early on that I didn't think was true, because of how valuable the IPs that WB owns were. I didn't think that Zaslav was a temporary fix. I thought that Zaslav was going to be there and then legitimately try to fix things. Now, the closer we're getting to basically doomsday with how WB is feeling, it looks like Zaslav is there to, hey, I'm going to try to help you guys, but I'm going to, in the end, just get a big fat check and then see you guys later. And he might sell everything again.
Amazon or Apple? Only two places I want DC or WB to go.
I think it would logically in dealing with all of the logistics and laws and everything, I think it may have to be Apple. Because Amazon at that point would just like, it would feel like too much, and people would definitely try to like stop that.
Apple's also in California, same place as WB, so like it would be interesting, but it would be kind of cool because I think anybody that buys Apple products would probably start getting free WB shit, which would be kind of cool.
We would get Batman themed iPhones.
Yeah, damn, that would be fucking awesome. Anyways, so there's two big things there, but probably the most interesting, I mean, well, we kind of talked about this, not really. Are people tired of multiverse stories? I am personally. I don't.
Yeah, it was a discussion that was brought up with a couple of friends of mine due to the fact that they were so surprised at the lack of success that the Flash was a part of, or that the Flash has. And so I was like, okay, well, why is the Flash not successful? And a lot of people were surrounding the idea that we've been getting multiverse stories for a very long time now. Us as nerds have probably been getting it a lot more than the general audience. But we've gotten a lot. I think starting with Into the Spider-Verse, in 2019. From then on,
Mhm.
it's only gotten worse.
Well, let's be real first, and let's say that the Arrowverse started it. Let's give them their
Yes.
credit.
Yes, the Arrowverse did start it, and I think even that was in 2019 with Crisis.
Well, they were building it the previous years, though, because
Yes, they were.
Flash went to the multiverse like in season 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
It did show the different things with
Yeah.
at that point, Supergirl was not a part of CW, so it was on
Mhm.
CBS. There was not even like an inkling of whether they could cross over or not. And then you started to see like the 90s Flash and everything else. So that is true. But since then, we've been getting nothing but multiverse stuff. And
Yeah.
it is so much so that like the biggest IP that is successful at this thing, that being the MCU, has named this phase the Multiverse Saga. So it's just one thing after another, one hit after another is just reminding you, hey, multiverse, hey, multiverse, hey,
Mhm.
multiverse. So it's not helping anything.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes in line with what James Gunn was saying as far as, hey, it's not superhero fatigue, it's story fatigue.
Yeah.
It's this same old bland, hey, here's a superhero, we're going to do this, we're going to bash some things, and then, hey, we save the day. And just mix in or sprinkle in a little bit of the multiverse story, and it does get a little bland,
Yeah.
So I am very interested to see how the MCU changes things up, because Ant-Man was a success, but it wasn't a success.
Mhm.
And from them seeing the Flash bomb the way it did, I don't think they can automatically say, oh, well, Across the Spider-Verse did good, so we're okay. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think they can do that.
Yeah.
And it also makes me think, okay, if Gunn has any plans for Crisis, it needs to be at the 10-year mark. It
Yeah.
cannot be within 5 years. It can't be within 3 years. It
Mhm.
has to be far enough away for us to kind of be done with the multiverse that we're having with everything else. And then he brings it back.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I had mentioned in the Discord when you were talking about how that end credit scene was supposed to have more on it, according to what you've heard. And it was supposed to hint at Crisis. And I was like, oh, that would have been worse. Because I don't
Yeah.
think you should be hinting that far in advance.
Yeah, and for those who want to know, this was an original ending that was done via when Hamada was still running things at WB. But at the end of the Flash, when you see Arthur and Barry talking outside of the bar, Aquaman, Arthur falls into the water. Barry grabs the thing and his little jewel or whatever, and immediately, like, just basically forgets about Arthur and goes straight to his apartment. And on his little like desktop with all the different screens, we were supposed to see Ben Affleck's Batman without the cowl and
Mhm.
him saying, Barry, what did you do? And it was supposed to mirror the scene in BVS where Batman Bruce Wayne was at his desktop and seeing a future Barry.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to tease that, like, hey, I need help. I need help. He was thrusted out of the timeline into a different universe,
Mhm.
thus teasing Crisis.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been, for me, because of the way that I was arguing things and the
Yeah.
fact that I understood everything, was, oh, this would show, hey, the timeline really is fucked up. And when we see the DCU, there's then an excuse on why we have a new DCU.
Mhm. Yeah. My thing is if I get that perspective, but I think logically the way your brain should assume is like, or how are they going to fix that? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so I think it would be weird, especially if the Clooney thing is there. So it's like, okay, you're going to show Clooney, But I honestly think even if they show that though, Clay, I don't think that fixed the Clooney problem. You know what I mean? Because you have to show, all you need to show me is Barry go to another timeline. That's all you need. And like the thing that sucks is we don't know what's going to happen with Ezra at the moment. The interesting thing is Andy Muschietti is still talking like he wants to do another Flash, which I think is interesting. Because one thing we didn't talk about on last week's podcast, and we mentioned it before, so I mean, we've kind of already spoiled spoilers anyways, but they never talk about who killed Barry's mom.
Yeah.
And we know who it is as comic book fans. And so they never show that. They never hint at it. They never do anything like that. So Andy Muschietti was like, oh, yeah, you definitely need to do that in the next film. Like, that needs to happen. So you could show the new timeline, him doing that again, and maybe Barry tries to go back in time or whatever. I don't know how they were going to fix this. But you would just, there's ways to be like, oh, yeah, we're in another timeline again. Or maybe Barry has to go back and he figures out like, no, she has to die. Like, that's just how it has to happen. And maybe it resets everything and Superman's younger and, you know, Batman's younger or whatever. But you got to show me that. And if you want to do that, like at the end of one of these new movies that's going to come out to show me that like, oh, yeah, that's how it changed. Fine, whatever. You need to show me it, though. And I think the thing is you can't show me with the recasted Barry. It would be so weird because of the dialogue you used in that end credit scene. Sorry, that was my phone. But like, I don't know. That's just a mess to me. But anyways, one thing I do want to talk about is because the way they could fix it is we're hearing about these reshoots of Aquaman, which is supposed to come out at the end of the year.
Yeah. So I'm not entirely sure what this means. Now, a lot of people are freaking out like, oh, the movie's not even finished yet, you know? Yeah. Guys, we haven't even received a trailer.
Yeah.
I don't know when the first trailer for the Flash was.
Mm-hmm. Super Bowl.
But I don't think we've even gotten a teaser trailer for Aquaman.
No.
The only thing we have gotten, and it hasn't even been officially released yet, was at CinemaCon. There was a poster for Aquaman 2. We haven't even gotten that yet. I am more and more worried about this movie, but more so due to the fact that this might be in response of the Flash. We've heard very conflicting things on like how exactly like the Batman cameo in Aquaman 2 is going to be playing out. Yeah. Whether that is even a thing anymore, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Especially now, especially with after the Flash, you 100% need to somehow show that this movie is taking place at the exact same time as the Flash, because of the ending of the Flash. You can't have the cameo of Ben Affleck and then knowing in your brain, well, that's supposed to be George Clooney. Like, yeah, that's going to be very difficult as well.
Yeah, and that's like, if I could go back, I'm like, don't release the slate, or just don't talk about the first 4 films. Like, you know what I mean? And I just don't think here's something we've also bitched about this, because we've talked about creative writing before on this channel, right? I think it's a lot harder to do in movies, obviously, because they've been filmed. I still think there's something you could have easily added to these films to make them make sense, right? Like, you could have probably had the Flash running through time. You know what I mean? Because what we saw is, remember how Flash like goes into the past and his head pops through? Like, you could just had his head pop through and other like things be like, nope, not this one. You know what I mean? And something like that. And even if they're all end credit scenes, like that would be totally fine. Because like it's like, all right, we don't need to change the core film at all. We just need to have Flash being like, this is the wrong timeline too, and just keep doing that. Like, because at that point, if you did give me, and this could be like 2 different end credit scenes, right? Like James Gunn has done like 16 end credit scenes at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 or whatever that was. But like, I kind of would like that story. Like the idea of a Flash running through time and being like, nope, not this one. And I'm be like, where is he going to end up? Like, I'd be curious. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then if the final end credit scene is the Superman movie where he's like, I think this is it. You know what I mean? Then it's just like, oh, and then, it is, or what you could do. And if you wanted to change it there too, there's another Flash there. And he's like, what? And then you're just like, okay,
But see, but that's the thing though. With what my concern was at the beginning of the podcast, due to the reception of the movie, do you keep Ezra Miller?
So we had a big discussion on my live stream last night about this because people were like, yo, what'd you think? Like, do you think they're going to recast Ezra Miller? I don't know. Because this is when you get into morals and philosophy and what everybody thinks. I am the type of person that can separate a person's performance from the person. If everything I have covered on my old YouTube channel about Ezra Miller is true, I think he is a scumbag human being. But that scumbag human being made me care about fucking Barry Allen in that Flash movie. You know what I mean? Both of those things can be true. And a lot of people have this thing like, oh, no, if I say he did anything good, that means I condone what he did. I'm like, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You know what I mean? We know there's plenty of people in history that have done amazing things that have had their inventions turned to do horrible things. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oppenheimer's just going to come out, right? That's going to be a big thing that people are going to learn about. Like, oh, shit, whatever. And so, you don't need just because you think something is good doesn't mean you condone the person that made it. You know what I mean? I think Tarantino's films are good. Uses the N-word a lot, though. I don't condone that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just like, dude. I don't know. I think it's really weird, and I think that's why a lot of people hate the Flash or don't want to see it. Dude, I've read some bullshit review. I saw some guy going off on Twitter saying it was like the worst fucking movie ever. It's childish. It's like, dude, he was coming for the throat. Like, it was clear that person hated Ezra Miller. Like, it was so clear. And they're like, this is the fucking worst movie I've ever seen. The CGI is horrible. They do this stupid, they were talking about the baby scene at the start. And I was like, I knew people were going to bitch about that. And it's supposed to be a cheeky moment, right? I think if you have the Guardians of the Galaxy putting babies in microwaves, people love it. They're like, oh, Drax is so funny. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you put that baby in a microwave. You know what I mean? I think they just clearly hate Ezra Miller right now. And on the podcast, on the live stream, I was talking about, can he be redeemed? Like, if he were to go to jail, let's say he goes to jail for 2 years or whatever for anything he did, right? Do we give him a clean slate after that? I guarantee you people won't, because people he went to jail. And I'm like, then what's the purpose of jail?
See, and I would have to disagree with you for one reason and one reason only. Robert Downey Jr.
Wait, are you saying that he's proof that we forgive them?
Yeah. Robert Downey Jr. is proof that you can forgive and forget.
Downey Jr.'s stuff, I think, was different than Ezra's, though. It would depend on what is real for Ezra, right?
So Robert Downey Jr., from what I can remember, I'd have to go back and do a little bit of research, but I remember his being very much like drug related, and that causing bigger things. Whereas Ezra his thing is small crimes kind of evolving into bigger things. And we've known now on scales of kind of confirmed, kind of not, as the fact that some of these things were blown out of proportion for the clicks. So even if he does have jail time, I genuinely think if he gets out of jail at a in time where he is kind of forgotten about, and then he has the performance of a lifetime immediately after, 100% I think people forget.
Yeah. My thing is, I think what people are hung up on is the allegations of grooming. I think that's where everybody is, because I don't think people give a shit about the breaking and entering and stuff, because that is a personal thing. That's it's only matter who broke in and if did they get money from Ezra? Did he pay them? He's like, I'm sorry, I paid for everything. I gave them money. Then that's on them.
Which I didn't realize this at the time of watching the movie, but in retrospect, it's fucking hilarious. They had Barry Allen phase through his wall and steal beer.
Yeah.
Which is
there's
what
a
he
lot
did
of
in real
things in
life.
there. Yeah, there's a lot of things in there. You'd be like, oh, that's distasteful. I'm like, dude, this movie was made a long time. This movie's been written for like 7 years. So it's like we didn't even know Ezra
Hey,
was gonna
what
be.
if Ezra was just getting into character? You know,
Hey, you know what? Great performance then. You know, that's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, I don't know.
Method acting.
I do think he could be redeemed, but I think that's what a lot of people are harping on is like those allegations, which again, I was talking about this on stream. I don't think a lot of those allegations hold up in a court of law because they were like, oh, he kidnapped a person. I'm like, that person was 18. That person technically in the state of, or instead of in America, you're an adult and you make your own decisions. So if that person constantly says like, I was never kidnapped, granted, you can get into like, well, you know, manipulation, yada, yada. It all comes down to what can be proven in a court of law, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think those stick. He has been arrested a few times, so there's a lot of stuff there. I think people forgive that. I think everybody is just focused on the grooming stuff because that is the most sus thing to me.
Yeah.
And even the one with like, they said he kidnapped a family or something like that and held them on their thing. I'm pretty sure that's something easily where cops just go to the house and are you being held against your will? And if they're like, nope. And it's just like, okay, can't do anything about that. They said no. And so like, I think a lot of those things, like you mentioned, were blown out of proportion. I'm not saying they are or not. I'm just saying that I do think a lot of things he's been accused of don't hold up in a court of law. And I think that's the biggest thing. I do think he can be redeemed, but I don't think he can right now. And I think he needs to do some good before anybody considers anything about him. He definitely needs to talk too. He can't be silent. Like he needs to come out more and be like, I fucked up. I was going through a lot of shit. I was like, I'm getting help. I'm trying to meet with, you know, therapist this amount of time, yada, yada. And I'm just going to try to redo things. And he needs to keep doing that and maybe even come out and explain. Like, I think he needs like an Oprah or some shit where they're going to walk him through a conversation. And granted, Oprah's not the best person, but like he needs a kind of interview like that, like a PR. Do not get Will Smith's PR team. His team is fucking terrible. Do not get his team, but he needs to do something for people to start coming back. But he needs to just admit to everything. Be like, yeah, I was fucking fucked up and shit, you know? But anyway, so I think we've covered all of that. The biggest thing is the reshoots. So I don't know what they would be for. I would have only assumed the reshoots are to try to make sense of stuff for the future. Yeah. But I just don't know what you add at this point. And they're going to have to be like end credit scenes, right? I don't think you can do anything else because you can't do anything that's crazy CGI, right? It has to be like the end credit scene for The Flash, something like that can explain something. Because Momoa, granted, he looked like he was in street clothes, but it looked like they were adding the hair to his head because I know he's shaved all of that.
He shaves a lot of it, but he also has like highlighted extensions for Aquaman.
Yeah. So I would assume they're doing some end credit scenes to maybe make sense of like what they could do because they've already hired this one guy and he already has the look. I'm assuming they could bring the guy from Creature Commandos in, the guy that was in Marvel, and have him be you know, and like connect something like that. Because I'm pretty sure Creature Commandos has some like water type people in it, doesn't it? They have like a fish character or something. Yeah, they could do something like that. That would be an interesting way to tie it into the universe. But then again, you're solidifying Momoa as Aquaman.
Which technically in the end of The Flash, if we're going by the new set rules, that Barry Allen always looks the same and everybody else looks the same. But Bruce Wayne does not. So,
yeah, I don't know, man. It's we'll wait and see. It's unfortunately the only thing we can do, which it's just really confusing to me. But besides this, there's one thing I want to talk about because we went back and forth with this because this has been up and down all the time, and we thought two reports come out within 24 hours of each other. One saying Gal Gadot is essentially out as Wonder Woman because she's a woman for hire now, or actress for hire, and says that she is now going to be going after projects that she has passion for and that she can do more with, right? She can have some control over all that kind of jazz. Is what the first report says. Home of DC and other people, you know, scoopers or whatever, are like, yep, she's out. This is what this means. Literally 24 hours later, another thing comes out that says Gal Gadot's comments clarified hints at possible behind the scenes stuff at DCU or DC working for Wonder Woman. So now she's back in. So, which I always said, if you're bringing anybody from that universe, you're bringing Gal Gadot. She looks great still. She's awesome as Wonder Woman. And she was in The Flash. And even in our theater, when people saw her, they were like, oh, yeah, awesome.
I think that when you look at the characters that have worked on screen for the general audience, it is Gal Gadot and it's Jason Momoa. I think those.
I throw Harley Quinn. Not Birds of Prey, though. Not Birds of Prey.
I was thinking more so the Justice League, not necessarily Harley Quinn.
Gotcha.
But out of our heroes and out of our leaguers, I think that the two that work are Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
Like Cavill has been polarized. Ben Affleck was a polarizing depiction of Batman. Cyborg, a lot of people don't have a comment about Cyborg, and we all know about Ezra Miller, you know?
Yeah.
So I do think those two characters, if you're going to bring them, it's your ace in the hole as far as getting those two castings. But with Gal Gadot, it's so weird because she has gotten a lot better in her performances throughout the years. You know, I think it was you that made the comment of like, she wasn't an amazing actor back in like what, Fast 7 or
I mean that's the only thing I remember her in. Like that's what got her.
Was it 7 or 6? I can't remember which one.
No,
it was.
she might die in 7.
Okay, yeah.
So,
okay,
yeah.
So like,
or no, I don't know.
I can't remember which one she died in.
So 4 is when they kind of reset everything because 2 and 3 don't really count in Fast and Furious. 4 kind of resets everything with Paul Walker, Vin Diesel coming back. And I think she's in that one. I could be wrong. If not, she's in 5 and 6, and she dies in the second movie.
Okay. So it was 6.
Yeah.
So she wasn't a very good actress then.
No.
But since then, she has gotten better.
Yeah.
At her performances. She's all over Netflix right now. She has, I think, a movie coming out within the next year. She's had, I think, 1 or 2 projects done at Netflix already. She still has a few things kind of hanging in the balance in limbo of Hollywood with Patty Jenkins. So it's like, okay, she is somewhat of a busy actress, even though we haven't seen her a whole lot. It's because it's been taking a while for these projects to actually become actual things.
Yeah.
But for me, and what I've been seeing a lot, especially when the first report came in of like, oh, she's done. A lot of people have said, if Gal's not coming back, we don't want anybody back.
Yeah.
Just reboot the entire thing. Let go of everything and just do it all over. And I kind of agree.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
But I also, I'm both ways because I also don't think that like Gal Gadot could be the only Wonder Woman. You know?
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm kind of in both, ballparks here. But I'm just very curious on how, again, it always goes back to this because we just don't know their plans on how they're going to connect these characters that have been portrayed by these actors into this newer universe.
Yeah. Dude, you just have a scene in Superman that shows the Justice League. That's all you fucking need. These are our new people. If Ezra's going to be there, cool. If fucking Aquaman's going to be there, cool. Gal Gadot, like, just show them. Because, like, do you think, I mean, the Justice League's probably not going to be a thing, right? But it would have to be.
See, it's very odd because from what we have heard, inklings, and I don't know if Gunn has necessarily confirmed a date and time in his career, but it's essentially what we think of as like not year 1, not year 4, but a lot of people are going back to this idea of like, oh, this is a year 2 Superman.
Yeah.
And like, I kind of like that idea. I kind of don't like, because it gets really wishy-washy with the idea of like, how long has Batman been Batman before Superman became Superman, and all of these different things. it all goes down to the story, man. Whatever really cuts down and makes sense. If this is an established universe, and I think that's more often than not the thing that we need to go ahead and be prepared for is that Gunn needs to kind of act like this is an already established universe and not treat us all like dum-dums. Because at this point, I think the general audience knows the characters. They want good stories and they want to have a good time.
Yeah.
You know? And we only need the origin stories for the new wacky characters that we know Gunn is going to want to use.
Yeah. Well, even then, he didn't even do that really for Suicide Squad. I mean, we got flashbacks to like showcase like, oh yeah, this is kind of how that person is, but we didn't need it. People loved Polka Dot Man, and we didn't see that much about him.
Yeah.
And like, so yeah, I think origin stories are becoming overrated in my opinion. Like, they're not necessary because you can kind of show those in cartoons and stuff if people care about them, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think you necessarily need to have a crazy origin story. I think a quick flashback and then people will just make up their own mind about other stuff.
But that reminds me, Gunn said that before he even set out plans for the DCU, he was wanting to talk to the animation studios for Wonder Woman in animation.
Yeah.
And for him, his big thing was, hey, we're going to have everything connect. So even like, I think he could very, very easily say, oh, this is an Elseworld story, but we want to give a little bit more of exposure to the Wonder Woman mythos and all of that stuff. Yeah. Sure. But if Gal's going to be connected to that, outside of like being a producer, that being like an actual voice for Wonder Woman, then we would feel like, hey, you kind of have to connect this, right?
Yeah.
So
I think we'll find out, because like even if they were to green light Wonder Woman right now, like a cartoon, I don't think that comes out for another 2-3 years maybe, because like animation takes forever. So you'd have Gal on that. That would be the first thing. I think we will find out if Gal Gadot's going to be Wonder Woman if she's in Paradise Island. Because I just don't think that it's just going to be a period to before her. I think they'll do a future, like this is where they are now kind of thing, and she'll be there.
But we don't even know when that is going to be taking place as far as filming or anything. Like, we don't know when that's going to be.
You would have to assume I would assume 2 of these projects are coming out a year at least. Okay. And now, are we saying 2 films are coming out a year plus projects? Because then that makes things a lot faster. Because it would be Superman, Batman, Brave and the Bold, which already have directors. Maybe Swamp Thing, because that already has a director and writer as well. Like, does that come out after Brave and the Bold?
Well, they did say that Swamp Thing will be, again, I guess now you can't take his word for it, but Gunn did say that Swamp Thing concludes chapter 1.
So I guess it would be later, but what's his name also said he's treating it as a standalone.
Yeah.
So it's all like, he's like, there might possibility be for trilogies or whatever. He's like, but I'm treating this as a solo story. Yeah. So like, and that just came out like 2 days ago or whatever. So
well, he said he's not treating it as a franchise. Yeah, and I think that is smart for some characters because I honestly, like, you cannot go to a random person on the street and say, hey, I'm going to explain this character of Swamp Thing, and I'm going to convince you to watch 6 hours of movies, not TV show, because anybody can do a TV show. But hey, I'm gonna convince you to watch 6 hours worth of movies that feature the main character of Swamp Thing.
Yeah,
like, people aren't going to be interested in that. They might be interested in a one-off movie that is teased at the end of a bigger movie. You know, I think that's the only way you get to see the one-off characters is if they are teased within the bigger characters that are like, okay, this guy's important for some reason. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in a Superman movie or he wouldn't be in a Batman movie and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I will just say, just after that podcast and The Flash, I have a million more questions than I do have answers, it feels like. But the last thing we got that does involve James Gunn and is part of the entertainment stuff is this joke about the how it should have ended scene of Superman across from Batman, which everybody knows this. You've probably seen the meme where it's Superman always says something to Batman. He's like, "It's because I'm Batman." And like, that's the big joke. By the way, if you're a YouTuber that reacts to them, I would not react to them anymore because they always claim your shit. That's why I stopped reacting to them. So, yeah, just FYI.
But yeah, this actually came out a month ago as far as this back and forth, and we just completely missed it.
Yeah.
It happened at the end of May, and somebody had something along the lines of like, if James Gunn were to make this happen in his new DCU, I will eat my left shoe.
Mm-hmm.
And James Gunn responded. He's like, "Hey, what are the technicalities of how I need to make this happen?"
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was like, "They need to be sitting in a coffee shop, drinking coffee, and make Batman say, 'Because I'm Batman.'"
Yeah.
And Gunn's response was, "Okay, I'll see you in a quote unquote or parentheses few years."
Mm-hmm.
Juice, as somebody who does not like jokey Batman,
Yeah,
but I think is a fan of these How It Should Have Ended series, because they're actually sometimes really fucking hilarious.
Yeah,
really
no,
good.
they are.
Great job as far as the creators. How would you feel about this new Batman saying, "Because I'm Batman"?
End credit scene.
And I don't think it would be as obnoxious as he does it in the. I could very easily see them, like you said, in an end credit scene, drinking a cup of coffee late at night, whatever, maybe in Gotham, maybe in Metropolis, whatever, and Superman asks him a question, and then Batman says, "Because I'm Batman."
Yeah,
and
it wouldn't
that's
be
the end.
It would be very like stone faced. It wouldn't. I don't think it would be jokey. If it is jokey, James Gunn, I just feel like he doesn't know Batman. Batman can't be jokey. Like, again, it's just, you just can't do that. And I feel like they might do it. Just kind of annoying.
No, but see, I think it can be jokey, but the jokey way that Batman the Animated Series is.
Yeah.
Because I can see Kevin Conroy's Batman saying, "Because I'm Batman," and then like kind of smirking while he's taking a sip of coffee. Like, I can see that being a thing. But like being off like balls to the wall, like, "Because I'm Batman," like that would be completely stupid. What
if he has two people that are not the actors but dressed up as Superman and Batman? Do it.
Then that's a cop out. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, he didn't specify that it had to be the actual people. He just needed that to happen on screen.
He didn't specify, but I would be kind of pissed. Me personally,
I would not if you actually have Clark and Bruce at the same diner right next to the people in costumes.
Okay, if that's the way they go,
literally two booths. So you have the I Am Batman person next to Bruce Wayne and Clark.
And I think it would be even funnier because like the Batman guy would say, "Because I'm Batman," and then whoever is playing Bruce Wayne just be like, "I don't say that."
Yeah, that's what you got to do. And so something like that. And then Superman could be like, "That's totally you," or something like that. And then that's it. That's the way you get around it. And that's funny. I think that's funny. You don't compromise Batman. And like, I think that works. Because technically he didn't say it had to be the actors. He just said Superman, Batman. So that's how I would get around it. I think that'd be funny. But I still think that guy would probably he'd be like, "That's a cop out. Not going to do it." You know? But if he ate it, that'd be fucking, I'd be like, "All right, man, it was weird. I appreciate that." But anyways, I think that is everything that we've had going on when it comes to entertainment news. That everything is, Oh, there was something just adding on to the Zaslav stuff that like Spielberg and like all these bigwigs were going to go talk to Zaslav to try to save Turner Classic Movies or whatever. Yeah. So just another thing just showing Zaslav he's all about saving money. He doesn't give a fuck
about anything.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't think there's anything else. The biggest shock to me is the reshoots for Aquaman 5 months out from the movie, 6 months out, which that's crazy. But man, that just adds fuel to the fire. That movie might be awful.
Yeah.
but we'll see. Who knows? Pretty crazy shit. But moving on to viewer questions, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think we got that many in Discord or even on YouTube, but we're gonna hit them. We got one from the Ponderer. Which DC character would you have picked to explore their backstory? For example, Gotham took place where Jim Gordon was a young detective. So which DC character would have a pick to show? Would you have a show like that? So just I guess an origin story.
I was gonna say, you may want me to read this one because I even was having trouble reading the question within itself.
That was confusing.
But basically, like, which character would you like to see have an origin story?
Okay.
He does give the example of James Gordon. I think more so because Ethan is a very big fan of Gotham.
Yeah.
That's basically what that was. I'm not entirely sure. Does he specify?
Doesn't say. It doesn't necessarily have to. Anything.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily.
Oh, it says which DC character. So yeah.
Well, I was thinking more so Gotham.
It just says DC character, so it could be Superman, it could be something like that. Yeah.
I think I would like to see, especially on screen, I would like to see the origins of Killer Croc.
Okay. Would you have him be a human, or was he always deformed?
I think it would be smarter to do like the deformity as a kid, so he's always grown up with it, like we've seen in some short stories of Killer Croc. I think it's a little bit more impactful because the mutation from a human, I think that's overdone. It's nothing new. But if it's a deformity from birth, I think that is a little bit more compelling of a character.
Yeah. If I'm picking, instead of getting whatever the hell they're going to give us with Penguin, give me Scarface. I want to see how the ventriloquist becomes Scarface and go through and how he becomes a mobster. Even because so many people would talk shit to him. So I want to see him go crazy and kill people, as Scarface, because people would be like, oh, well, you're going to kill me with the little wooden gun? And then fucking he's dead. And they're just like, oh shit. And he's like, y'all work for me now, or whatever the fuck. But yeah, I don't know. I'd always go Scarface. Scarface, Clayface, Dollmaker. I'm always going to preach those three things. So just FYI in the future. So yeah, we'll go on from that. Moving on to the question. I'm going to refresh one more time on this just to make sure we didn't get any more. Let's see. Nope. Doesn't look like we got anything new. Sort by new. All right. So Moncre says, so if DC started selling fully functional, non-lethal bat gadgets, which would sell the best? I'm assuming we're talking about gadgets that he uses to fight, not necessarily like planes and stuff.
Well, I think anything, not necessarily things that he would need to use to fight. Grappling hooks, they're both travel and been used for fighting as well, because he's done very clever things of like knocking things out of people's hands with the grappling guns and stuff like that. Oh man,
I feel like grappling hooks is the best seller.
I think it is a bestseller, but I think it's the biggest lawsuit waiting to happen. People try to grappling a building and swing and boom, dead.
Yeah.
Gosh, I would probably say the grappling hook would be your top seller. A close second would be either the batarangs or some sort of bat drone that he has had in the past.
Yeah, started selling full functionally non-lethal bat gadgets, which would sell best. So I'm gonna call out one that I think I would 100% buy. Granted, I don't if they're affordable, which I don't think they would. It's in a story a lot of people don't read. It is a story called Batman: Death by Design. And it is where he's going after, he's trying to find out, like, I don't know if somebody's destroying old buildings or something like that, but it ends up having to do with an architect. And like people are like fucking up with architects or whatever. And there's this one moment or fucking with an architect, where he falls out of a building with somebody, and I think it's around his belt or something like that. He has a force field ball that he gets turned around, and he falls, and he's totally okay. And I'm all like, yeah, I'm doing that because I would never feel scared after that. Like if I could fucking heights, oh shit, I fell, bloop, look at me rolling down this fucking thing now. Like I'd totally be fine. Like, so yeah, but I also think that would just be like everybody would use that for like just stupid reasons. A lot of people would die. A lot of people would die because they would be scared and they'd be like, oh, I can't, and dead. I'd be like, yeah, should have pushed the button earlier. You're dumb. But I think I would go with the stupid gadget like that. That or the lightsaber belt. But I mean, that would be kind of lethal, I think, at some point. But that's a fire ass gadget. But yeah, I don't know. So, but I do think grappling hooks would be. I feel the thing is, to be honest, like I feel like a lot of Batman's gadgets could be lethal, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But grappling hook, 100%, because people would just be fucking around. So, dude, that would hurt so many people in schools. Look what I got. Oh, shit, I'm dying. But yeah, that'd be crazy. Moving on to Eduardo de la Cruz. If you're good at something, never do it for who would win. Dr. Manhattan versus Doctor Who. Martian Manhunter versus Piccolo. Doomsday versus Cell. There's some good matchups here. Dr. Manhattan versus Doctor Who.
This is an interesting one. Yeah. Because in every single time period, he's facing a different doctor.
Yeah.
Which, even though they are the exact same person, he has different personalities with each reincarnation. And each reincarnation brings something new to the table. So it would be a different fight every single time, which I think would be really, really fun. Ultimately, just due to the immense power of Dr. Manhattan, I don't think you can choose Doctor Who.
Here's the thing, though. Canonically, you can cloud Dr. Manhattan's future.
Yes.
That is canonically happened. Doctor Who has destroyed civilizations. You know what I mean? He's killed his own people, and he has went back in time and changed something that has happened. He's used his original self to help him change something in the future.
Yeah.
So, like, this could be one of those situations where his old self could see his new self and start planning for it.
Yeah.
So, like, it's hard to beat because, like, you haven't seen the new shit, right?
I have not. But let's go back to the canonically being able to hinder Dr. Manhattan's future sight. So the reason that is canonically, it's in Doomsday Clock, and it's Superman. Superman.
Oh, I was talking about Watchmen. Because remember, he doesn't know what's going to happen because they cloud his memories because he doesn't know he's going to be framed for the explosion thing. Or if you're going off the like, it's the same concept, but like that's how Snyder made him out to be, right?
Correct,
but it's the same thing in the comic book.
In the comic as well.
Yeah. They just use the octopus
with the giant Cthulhu alien. But yeah, so it happened in the movie, comic, and even in Doomsday Clock. So if you're this would be a battle of the ages, honestly. Which would be amazing. To actually I would love to see who does the animated ones. This is it not Superpowered Beatdown is the live action ones.
I don't know who does the animated ones.
Is it Screw Attack? I think is the.
There's a few different ones because there's like parody ones too. So
I would really love to see somebody animate this. And like for one, if like as soon as Dr. Manhattan like kills one doctor, he immediately is gonna start to regenerate and stuff. I think that would be kind of cool. That is a flaw. That is a flaw in Dr. Manhattan. But again, you just have the Dr. Manhattan's power is very godly.
Because I think everybody thinks he's just going to explode Doctor Who right away, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's what everybody always jumps to. But like the Doctor has never followed his own rules. So I think he would look into his timeline. Because and if he doesn't look into his timeline, his companions would. Because Clara has 100% done that.
Yeah. And for one, I think Manhattan, another one of his flaws is not necessarily his ego, but his ignorance in the fact that he knows everything, but actually he doesn't. Would really help the battle of the minds with Doctor Who as well, which I think would be really fun.
Yeah. Because the Doctor, because Manhattan sees everything, I think, future forward thinking. And he's like, none of this matters, blah, blah, blah. Doctor Who would come in there and be like, bitch, let me tell you a lesson. And tell him how time actually works. You know what I mean? Because I think Manhattan, I don't know if Manhattan necessarily understands time that way from what they've shown us. I think he like goes down and he's like, nothing matters because I've broken everything down to molecules, all this kind of bullshit. Whereas Doctor Who would tell him how like, well, you're changing something here. By you doing this, you're changing everything that comes after this, yada, yada, yada. So like, I think it would be very different. Because Doctor Who, because he could probably show him things that Manhattan would never see, right? I don't think Manhattan, well, I think Doomsday Clock has probably changed this now. But like, if you're going off of just what was in Watchmen, I don't think Manhattan can see multiple universes or different timelines. He's just seeing his future, right?
Yeah.
So Doctor Who could show him a bunch of different things. And like, I don't know, I'd be very curious. Because you haven't seen the new stuff where they kind of like, there's like this new explanation of shit that the Doctor knows now.
It's moved up on my list. So I am going to be watching it soon.
Yeah. So like, I would watch that and then maybe the conversation's different. Because the Doctor's kind of crazy now. But yeah, so I would say, I would say a toss up, but my nerdiness wants to go with Doctor Who. Because I do think everybody just thinks like, oh, they're just gonna explode him. But I'm like, but it's time, bro. Like it's very different. So I would go Doctor Who. Martian Manhunter versus Piccolo. Which Piccolo are we getting?
I was gonna say, so you have 4 different Piccolos.
Yeah.
You have the original Demon King, Piccolo. Then you have Piccolo by himself. Then you have Piccolo fused with the nail, and then you have Piccolo fused with Kami. So which, like, there's
we just had King Piccolo or whatever he is now.
Oh yeah, the orange Piccolo.
Yeah.
In the Super movie. That's right. I would think Ultimate Form, which would be this newer version of Piccolo. Which they are, by the way, adapting the movie into the manga right now, and it's actually kind of fun. I have to go Piccolo.
Yeah.
I think that although Martian Manhunter has array of powers, I think with the brute strength and just the insane things that Piccolo is able to do, Piccolo would take that cake.
Now, Martian Man. Well, also the special beam cannon, is that fire-like? Because that's instant.
Well, I think any key blast is pure energy which does put off some sort of heat.
Yeah. Also, can Martian Man? I know he can transform into things, but does he also have like the regeneration power? Does he do that? He has to, right? Because he can transform into shit.
I don't know if he can regenerate. Let me actually look it up.
It would be really weird if you could transform into stuff, but you can't regenerate. I feel like that'd be really weird. Because like, what if you transform into a gecko? They can lose their tails. So like,
oh, that's true.
You know, yeah, because I think they all have similar powers. They both fly. They both have powers like lasers or kind of things like that. They can both regenerate, I think. But with Piccolo training with somebody along the lines of like Goku, I think Piccolo probably takes that fight. And he also doesn't really have a weakness.
He can regenerate. It says here, the Martian Manhunter has shown amazing regenerative capabilities, so great that he has been able to completely regenerate from nothing but his severed hand. So all that was left was a hand, and he was able to regenerate.
Ooh, regeneration powers are kind of OP. But if you're burning him completely, That's the thing I'm kind of thinking about. Because a key blast, like if we're talking about the way they are in Dragon Ball Z, where they engulf you when you're trying to hold them back, he's fucked.
Yeah.
But does Piccolo ever done something like that?
So Piccolo has, of course, the special beam cannon.
Yeah.
He has the Hell Zone grenade where he like throws a whole bunch of key blasts everywhere and then throws them into one area. He has the Maseko. I think the Maseko is probably the largest thing that he can probably make as far as wideness, because the whole thing about the special beam cannon is that it's narrow and it's very like exact. So yeah, I don't think he has anything as large as what people would know as the Kamehameha.
Yeah. Yes, I would go Piccolo. Doomsday versus Cell. I think I go Cell there.
This is a really fun one.
Yeah.
An unstoppable object meets a immovable object.
Yeah.
With Cell. This pairing is very fun. You have one that is both are pure strength in numbers, as far as like Doomsday was. They're both creations for one, which I think is very fun. They both have a similar type of origin story, but Cell has the brains. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Doomsday is nothing but brute strength, and he kind of just goes wherever. Whereas Cell can get to the point where he's nothing but strength. We've seen it before in the Cell games, but like I just think Cell has the brain to win that fight.
He is also canonically come back from just being a Cell.
Yeah.
Stronger, because he has the Saiyan blood in him. So he comes back even stronger the second time.
Yeah.
Which is insane. So I go Cell there. You guys don't want to bring Dragon Ball Z into comic book stuff, because look, Superman's the only one that beats people, okay? Only time. Everybody else, Goku gonna wipe everybody out. Moving on to Jason Todd. If Batman canonically had a kink / fetish, what would it be? Honestly, it's BDSM. It's what, like, Catwoman's got a whip.
Yeah, like, I think the exact same thing.
He likes latex on this stuff. He's constantly in pain or getting beat up. Like, it's 100% BDSM. It wouldn't shock me if it came out that fucking, Bill Finger or Bob Kane had a fetish of that kind of shit too. Like, it would not surprise me. More so Bill Finger, because he's the one that made Batman the way he is now, whereas Bob Kane had him in like a leotard and shit. So, yeah, it's 100% BDSM. So that would be the kink. Nathan says, what villain upgrade sounds the most interesting? One, ventriloquist now having a puppet master abilities like Sazori from Naruto. Sazori from Sazori, right? I haven't seen Naruto in a while. Sasori from Naruto. I don't remember which. Oh, is that the when he Garo's or Gar? What? It's not Garo. Goro. What is it? What's the sand guy's name? I forget the sand guy. But his teammate, right? That's the puppet guy that has him in the thing. Okay.
Gara.
Gara. There you go. Scarecrow physically transforming into your fear. Okay. Solomon Grundy summoning any dead close by. Via Arkham experiments, Zaz gains invisibility. Okay. Penguin being able to manipulate all birds. Well, I mean, what is Hitchcock has showed me that birds can be very dangerous.
Yes, they can.
But I don't think that's going to be bad than some of these other ones. I don't think Zaz gaining invisibility. I don't think Zaz would like that. I think Zaz likes that people see that he's about to kill them.
Yeah, I think he likes it very much up close and personal.
Yeah.
As far as the last one, Penguin having control of birds, if you watch the 2004 the Batman cartoon, Penguin isn't just obsessed with penguins, he's obsessed with all birds.
Yeah.
And he does train them to obey his commands. So we kind of already seen that before. It's a fun adaptation of the character for sure.
Yeah.
But as far as the most interesting one, the The Scarecrow is a little odd.
Yeah.
Being able to transform into your biggest fear. What happens when he's facing multiple people?
Yeah. What
You know?
happens if like my fear is hot girls? Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh no, you're a hot girl. Like,
Well,
you know?
then you're the only one that's afraid of it. You know,
Yeah.
that's what I
Could
mean.
you
Like,
do you think you could mentally, like, if we know Batman can mentally make a personality, do you think you could mentally make up your own fear? Is that how we do it anyways? You know what I mean? Like, let's just say right now, I am not scared of something. Could I make myself
convince
scared of
yourself.
something? Yeah, and then Scarecrow turns into that? That'd be the biggest troll ever.
I think so.
I think number one's the best. Ventriloquist. Being able to control things like puppets.
But I also think the Solomon Grundy, because he said what would be the best upgrade in powers.
Yeah.
Solomon Grundy being able to have his own zombie army, I think is pretty badass also.
True. My thing is, I do kind of hate that the quality of zombies are always good in shows and shit. You know what I mean? You want to know what you want to know? This is a side tangent, but I've been watching The Walking Dead a lot, right? You want to know the why I call bullshit on all of these apocalyptic shows, not just the Walking Dead or anything like that. Every show that has to do with where it's the end of the world, essentially. Nobody, and I fucking have never seen it. Nobody ever has arthritis to where they're having a bad day where it's like, my leg's a bum. It's like, oh man, acting up today. Or nobody ever has to take a shit really bad. No, like they eat food, like they're eating like rats and like snakes and all this stuff, and nobody's ever got explosive diarrhea. Like, I'm like, come on, man. What the hell is going on?
It's in between the panels.
But
It's during
I want to see
commercial
an
break.
episode where that's why they're in trouble. They're like, oh man, I just ate something wrong. And then like there's zombies in the shit. They're like, oh, I gotta fucking take a shit, and there's zombies outside. Like, that's terrifying.
Freaking
That is terrifying.
That's Zombieland, because doesn't he go to the bathroom and then the fucking
True. That is the intro, but it's like one zombie, right? And he's technically like scared of like a fake zombie because he goes out to his car after he takes a shit. I'm talking about but he didn't have to deal with. He just needed to take a normal shit, but he didn't have like bad diarrhea or anything like that. That's what I want to see. Somebody's got an upset stomach after eating something that they just ate. But yeah, like crazy. So yeah, apocalyptic shows need to change shit. Moving on from that, but yeah, I like the ventriloquist one, but I guess if you're getting good zombies that actually can hold up and actually do something, but if it's just like, oh, we just walk around, because like here's the thing, if you have just dead zombies, like let's say you get the Walking Dead zombies, right? Do they convert other people into zombies? You know, or are they just bodies to get in the way? Can they fight? You know, like,
see, I think that would be OP though, if they could, if he could raise the dead and then they could create more zombies.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. So that I would need more details on the abilities of these dead corpses. Because I think if they just raise from the ground and then like they're like all disheveled and I can push them over and they just break, you know what I mean? Then I'm just like, that's not so bad. Alexis Barrera says, would you rather see a Chris Claremont, Brian K. Vaughan, or Jeff Lemire 7-volume Batman run? Now, if I'm not mistaken, Chris Claremont is the X-Men guy, right? Did a lot of great X-Men stories. Brian K. Vaughan, what is he known for? I don't know who Brian
K. Vaughan is known for Saga over at Image.
I've only ever read the first volume. And Jeff Lemire, obviously, Jeff Lemire's done a lot of DC stuff. I'd have to go Chris Claremont for the X-Men stuff he's done. He's pretty solid. So
I would,
because I've read Jeff Lemire Batman and it's okay.
I love Jeff Lemire as a writer, in general. I'm gonna be the odd man out and say Brian K. Vaughan.
Okay, I haven't read this stuff, so
Brian K. Vaughan has done some wacky stuff. Also, he's also written the now unfortunately canceled show. It was a comic book. Paper Girls is also another comic that he's done over at Image. I have loved what I've read from Saga. I've only read the first 2 volumes. I own, I think, the first omnibus digitally, and I need to finish reading that. But excuse me, I think that he understands the value of what we want out of Batman, which is dealing a lot with the Bat family.
Yeah.
And Brian K. Vaughan does relationships very well. And I think he just gets that. So I would love to see what he can do with Batman.
Yeah. It was funny you mentioned that Paper Girl show. It automatically reminded me of like there's been some good comic book shows that didn't get like the time of day that were like on sci-fi and stuff. There was one where it was like this crazy dude, and it was batshit crazy stuff that happened in it. I'm forgetting the name of it. It got 2 seasons, but it was such a fucking great show. And then there was also is it Assassin Classroom or Deadly Class or something like that?
Yeah.
Deadly Class was fucking fire, and it only got 1 season, which pissed me off. I forget what the other show was called. Is it like Punch or Punish or something like that? I don't know. It was fucking awesome though, and I was like, damn, that show was fucking dope. Also, I know that like Legion was pretty good. Apparently,
no. What was the one with the mythical unicorn dude that you watched?
I think that's might have been. Was the main character like a cop or an ex-cop or something like that? Yeah, that one. That's the one I'm talking about. I'm trying to figure out what the name is, but it was like something weird. It was like I can't because I want to think it was on. Was it on FX or it was on Sci-Fi?
It was on Sci-Fi.
Yeah, a Sci-Fi dude. Sci-Fi got so many good shows and fucked them all up.
It was the dude from
yeah, I'm
Law and Order.
Happy. It was called Happy. That show was fucking great. And unfortunately, it didn't. It only got 2 seasons.
That comic was written by Grant Morrison.
Yeah. No, Happy is fucking amazing. For anybody that hasn't seen it, it's what's his face that's really popular as a comedian. Is the voice of is Happy the donkey. It's like a fairy unicorn thing. But yeah, that show was really good. I wish that would have went to Amazon. That show had people seen that. That was The Boys before The Boys.
Yeah.
Way before The Boys. And people are like, The Boys is so different. I'm like, bro, that Kick-Ass was before The Boys. Like, people think, I don't know. I like The Praise for The Boys. It's a great show, but it's not the first show to do what it's done. And then I think the last thing we got is Clay says, what movie adaptation would get people talking the most? Death of the Family, 3 Jokers, Deceased, Dark Knight's Metal, Batman Damned. 3 Jokers, hands down. Because people talk about it now, and I'm like, shut up.
Like, I mean, you don't think Batwing Gate would come back?
Are we going to get that version, or are we going to get the censored version now? That's the thing, You
can play with shadows and everything else.
Yeah, so I don't think we get Batwing. So that would be the thing, the way DC treats that. I think they would 100% do it 3 Jokers.
I think they could do 3 Jokers.
Yeah.
But he said would get the people talking the most. So
I think people already talk about it. That's why.
But I also think that seeing a live action Death of the Family, not Death in the Family.
Mm-hmm.
Those are 2 different things. Death in the Family was the death of Jason Todd. Death of the Family was Scott Snyder's run. Yeah. Seeing the entire Bat family being tortured by Joker, I think would get a lot of people talking.
Yeah. I think Deceased and Dark Knight's Metal are very it's like kind of like multiverse type movies. So I just think people are kind of tired of those. They might be cool to watch. They might have cool stuff, but we're kind of seeing that people are kind of tired of the like crazy, ridiculous action. And I think they want really good stories. I think right now with everybody being so like, oh, we're tired of all this, is the perfect time for a Green Arrow movie. A not hardcore, like everything practical Green Arrow movie. So it'd be kind of crazy. But moving on from that, ladies and gentlemen, I still go through Jokers, but that is all the questions we got, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to move on to comic books, which there's 3 books, right? Is that, or did I miss one?
I think you missed one. Because I read 4.
Okay. I read Nightwing, I read Wonder Woman, the ending of Wonder Woman, and World's Finest.
There's also Titans is another one.
Oh, were we reading Titans? I thought we didn't read Titans before.
I'm pretty sure we read issue number 1. Did we not?
Was that the one that ended with what's her face taking or saying that she'll come back to hell?
Shit, was it?
I don't remember. I'm scrolling through it right now. I don't remember any of this.
Okay, let me.
Yeah, I don't think we covered it, man. Because the only thing I remember is the stuff that happened in Nightwing. I don't remember reading Titans. It might have been one of those weeks where we didn't cover anything or we just missed it.
I think that we both didn't read it. I think that was the thing.
Yeah. So I didn't read that. So we didn't cover one, so I can't really talk about that. But yeah, I think we got the 3 here. Also, Catwoman is a thing. You don't need to read Catwoman, but and I'm talking about it as a Clay, but for everybody else, I think they kind of hinted at what they're going to try to do in the war. So on the very last page, you have Dario and Catwoman on a rooftop. And Catwoman essentially seems like she wants to kill the rich, but not literally. But she wants to take the money from billionaires and stuff like that and give it to other people, it seems like. So like a Robin Hood story. Yeah. And she's like, oh, like that's going to cause a lot of enemies. Like, oh, she was going to take it from everybody in Gotham, right?
Yeah.
Is what it seems like. And then they hint, they're like, she's like, I'm going to leave you guys for a couple of nights because I got to go talk to somebody who has a big stake in Gotham. And it has a flashing light in the sky and it's the bat signal. So it's weird because they kind of already, I don't think in Catwoman at all have they shown Selena trying to have a secret identity, whereas Zdarsky has. Yeah. So another fuck up in writing. They're not talking to each other, it seems like. And so Selena is going to go talk to Bruce now, essentially. And if this is going to be the reason they fight is because she wants to take the money from the rich and give it to a bunch of other people, but Bruce apparently has a stake in everything. Bruce has never got his money back.
Yeah.
They
haven't acknowledged that. Yeah.
Yeah, again. And it doesn't make sense when you're trying to play things off of each other. But we had that conversation about what Seeley said, where everybody just kind of does their own thing. They just kind of jump up. You can't reference stuff. But then fucking write it in a proper way. You've never told me that Bruce has his money back. So, like, I don't know. Makes no sense. I guess Zdarsky has had him back at the manor and stuff. Did he lost that a long time ago?
No,
right?
The few times that that we've seen Bruce wake up from like in any type of bed situation, it looks like it's an apartment.
He hasn't been because at the start of it, he wasn't in the cave, and that's when the thing fell.
Yeah.
So he still doesn't have money. So they're still referencing that, which would kind of contradict what Seeley has said, which is kind of weird. But then again, Batman never has stopped, right? Like that's the one thing that has stayed through continuity. All the reboots is Batman, and Green Lanterns for a while, I think. But so again, really confusing if you're reading Catwoman and Batman, which is crazy. I don't know if you saw in the Discord what Raphael posted, but the Batcat account on Twitter has officially called it quits. They are done.
Really?
Yeah, officially done. Saying I don't want to read it on there because I think it is a private account, so I'm not gonna read it out on the podcast. But essentially saying that they've kind of lost interest. There's the comics aren't good enough. They don't care. They don't have there's not a spark for their favorite characters anymore because it's been so bad. So just saying, DC out here killing people that actually are killing the vibes for people that actually love some of these characters with a
big fan account that had a big following.
Yeah, huge. Like it was crazy because it was like Batcat post and then the person's name. And like they posted great art. They kept up with stuff. Like it was really cool. But how DC has been trying to do this I really want to see the numbers, man. I really want to see why DC thinks that can't happen and be like, nope, we have the numbers that show that people don't like Catwoman and Batman together. I just don't understand it.
I can't remember. Yeah, it was Raphael that showed that Catwoman currently is selling not in the top 50, not in the top 100,
Nope.
the top 120 comics. And this is overall with Marvel, DC, and Indie. Out of all of that stuff, Catwoman is at 116.
Yeah.
Whereas Batman is nearing the top. But again, we've always said it's Batman.
Yeah. I want to say when there was crossover between Batman and Catwoman, I want to say Catwoman was in the top 50. Like, she was probably like in the 40s, but I want to say she was in the top 50 when there was a Bat-Cat relationship. And then now that there's not, it's just like, why do I care? Like, why would I even buy it? So I want to know that reasoning. One day I'll be at Comic-Con. If I come across Jim Lee or somebody like that randomly, I'll fucking ask him 100%. Or somebody that's worked on it. Teeny Howard, your shit sucks. I wonder if Zdarsky would be at Comic-Con. That would be interesting. Because I wouldn't be a dick, but I would definitely ask a question. I'd be like, look, man, I just want to know, why does DC hate Bat-Cat so much? And I think that's a fair question to ask any writer. Yeah. You know what? If I see Gail Simone, I'll definitely ask her, because she has no problem telling the truth about shit.
Yeah.
Which I like. Anyway, so that was Catwoman, in case you wanted to read it. Let's move on to Nightwing first. I think we'll talk about, I don't know, you think we'll have more to talk about with the Wonder Woman thing or World's Finest?
I think more so World's Finest, because Wonder Woman was good. I really enjoyed it, but it was kind of a nothing burger, because I think more so we'll have more to talk about if they develop any of this like future story that they're telling.
Yeah. So let's talk about Nightwing, which was a gimmick issue.
Yeah.
So you're reading it from the perspective of Nightwing.
The pitch was, you are Nightwing.
Yeah.
The days before this was released, and it's all in first person. You of course get to see Dick Grayson every once in a while due to reflection of the mirror or some glass doors and stuff like that. So it was a fun issue. It did kind of get annoying after a while. I was just like, I would really love to see what he is doing as far as like acrobatics wise, and like fighting wise, to see like a really nice panel and whatnot. But it was a fun issue.
Yeah, it was a fun issue. It's funny that you say perspective. My perspective, I'd be looking at Batgirl way more than they were showing in this thing. But like, I just do think that it's funny, because there is perspective. You see the behind of Batgirl like the whole time. But I just be like, oh, there's villains here. Oh shit. But yeah, no. Anyways, I think it was a fun one-shot issue. I will 100% say that. The problem is, I don't care about this story anymore.
Well, that's the thing. They're finally connecting. They're using this issue to connect to stories that Taylor was telling. And I think this is the way that Taylor is saying, hey, I'm getting to this again. I'm coming back to the story. Because, of course, Heartless is in here. Not being Heartless, he's actually being his actual self. I like the joke at the end, because like this guy keeps calling Nightwing Dr. or Mr. Wing. And Dick Grayson is saying, like, it's just one word. It's not Mr. Wing. It would be Mr. Nightwing. It's kind of like calling you Mr. Hole, as in asshole. I thought that was really clever and kind of funny.
Yeah. First of all, too, you would think he gets water from this guy. As a superhero, you probably shouldn't drink stuff people give you.
I was very much questioning that. As soon as you see the glass, like in the first perspective, I was like, this is poison.
Yeah.
Like, that's the first thing I thought.
Yeah. I've read Human Target. Like, I know what that is. You know what I mean? I do like the idea of finally seeing Heartless out of the costume. I think that's kind of cool. I'd like to see who he is. I don't really like that villains like Heartless and stuff like that always have to be somebody that have status,
that has money, that has all this stuff.
Yeah.
It was established that he was a little bit of like a bratty rich kid, though.
Yeah. Okay. I don't remember,
because it did reference when we first saw him in Nightwing 78, when he was a bully that was bullying Barbara, and younger Dick Grayson, headbutted him from the bottom up. That was when we first saw their first interaction. And even Nightwing does say, oh, this is so-and-so from back in the day. So he does recognize him. But I kind of like, of course, it's very, very hot right now. Eat the rich. Hate the rich and everything else. I laughed at way too many TikToks in the past few days dealing with this whole submarine issue. So I'm definitely going to hell. But it's just it's a cliche that I wouldn't say that I'm already tired of, but I would like to see something different for sure.
Yeah. I do consider myself a very progressive person, and I'm somebody that loves inclusivity, but there is a time and place for it, I think. I think Pedro Pascal recently came out and said, he was like, you just need to give people of color great stories and people will start shutting up. You know what I mean? But he said it shouldn't matter the IP. Like, it shouldn't matter. So I think it's pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, again, fun issue, but this book started off with like, hey, it's your sister, and I'm like, oh, so she just calls him no problem. Like, I still don't know who this bitch is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really annoying that he's just accepted her, like, no problem. And maybe that's just to showcase like how different Nightwing is to Batman, you know? Because like we had Deathstroke versus like Batman a long time ago, right? And Batman had confirmed that Damian was his kid a long time ago. So kind of being like, oh, bitch, I took like a Mendelian paternity test to make sure you were my kid, you know? Like, I know that for a fact. And so like Batman is very hesitant of everybody. And maybe Nightwing, that's the difference, right? Like, he's like, oh, I'm accepting of everybody. But
and that was something that I read in Titans issue number 2 this week was the rest of the team of the Titans are like, oh, you're just like Batman, you have contingency plans for all of us. He's like, yes, but the only difference is I'm actually going to share those with you. And like, he actually like says like, hey, I'm not going to keep this a secret, I'm going to let you guys know. Like, because we're all a danger to each other if somebody brainwashes us or something. Like, he is very open about it. So yeah, this week has definitely shown like how different Nightwing is as a hero compared to that of who has trained him being Batman.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, Nightwing Batman, when he is acting like Batman, is still the best though. Like, that one future state when he was fucking up everybody because he was like, Batman's dead. Like, that Nightwing is awesome. I hope this is on the road to finishing the Heartless story, because I do want to see what's in that fucking cave that's about Villain Banks or whatever the hell it was.
Oh yeah, that
what is that
or whatever?
That we're gonna get Jack Sparrow. Like, I'm curious on what's happening there. But I'm hoping that now that the Titans book is out, we're finally gonna get answers to all of these. But I hope it doesn't take like 12 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, dude, we already know everything. I feel like this Heartless story should be wrapped up in the next 3 issues, personally. I don't know how you feel about that.
I think it will take another arc. So anywhere from 4 to 6. Okay. I think that's what we should
including
expect.
This?
No, I think this is the jumping on point for anybody who wants to come back to the title. This would be the perfect issue to do so. So it's this issue kind of is like, hey, this is a refresher of where we were, and now the story is going to start.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Nightwing has always been readable. It's just the story's been a little convoluted, in my opinion. Maybe convoluted's a wrong word. It's just, it feels like he's opening a bunch of doors and not closing any of them, is what I would say. And so maybe they're finally going to start closing some shit because the AC bill's getting really bad. Okay, moving on to Wonder Woman 800. Now, we're only going to talk about the end story, but there's actually a Batman and Superman story in Wonder Woman 800, if I'm not mistaken. So I didn't read all of them. I just jumped to the final story, which is the Tom King tie-in to his Wonder Woman run that's going to be happening. And this actually has Batman and Superman. It is basically the Trinity's kids is what this is. So the new Trinity, I don't know what they would be called in the future. I don't know if we're going to know that, because like, do you call them the Trinity when one of them is called Trinity?
I think so still. But before we get to the story, because you kind of glanced over the first story, I really need your opinion on the Batman part, because again, talking about, the love interest of Bruce Wayne, this heavily implies something. because Wonder Woman is going through like these different dream states of everybody. One being Bruce Wayne, Batman, showing Wonder Woman is seeing like the death of his parents and everything else. He's finally, it shows that he's grown up to be Batman, and she's trying to be very what's the sentimental and kind of like coddling in a sense of like, hey, I'm always going to be here for you and everything else.
Yeah.
But Batman says to Diana, I just mean you're so much better than me. I'm in pain all the time, and I look to you because you're my rock. So, like, are we getting?
I think it's always been an
Wonder
undertone
Bat?
for them. I think people would want. If you're not gonna give me fucking Catwoman, you might as well. Like, goddamn, she's over here fucking two big criminals. You might as well let him fucking Diana. No, wait. So they did confirm that, or the artist did confirm that Trinity's hair is brown. It looks different because of the sunlight and stuff like any other character would. So just for anybody that was confused with that. So if it's not blonde, it's got a chance to be Bruce Wayne. You know what I'm saying? But like, yeah.
I mean,
so
but the second story Damian doesn't really talk as if it's his sister, though.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, she kind of hints that they're kind of like brothers to her, though.
Yeah.
So like it would be interesting. I don't think that's the case, but yeah, and he even says at the end of that story, he's like, damn, Diana's always there, like even in my dreams, like for him.
Yeah.
This could be one of those just like, friendships, you know what I mean? Because like who knows? Like here's the thing too, is again, when it comes into time and stuff, through Tom King's story, they've spent hundreds of years together, or whatever the case is, right? Like fighting that monster.
Yeah.
In a slowed down timeline, or it was like 40 years, or I forgot how long it was, but like something insane together. And so yeah, I think they just have a kind of relationship. She might be the light that he never, like, he wishes he could see, like what do they say that it comes, what are their different things? Like Superman is hope, Batman is justice, and Diana is truth, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I mean, maybe that's kind of why he always goes to her. I mean, it gets simple like that. If they want to hint at Wonder Bat stuff, I'm totally down. Because that is the one thing DC, I feel like, hasn't done that people would be on board for. You know what I mean? They did the Superman, Wonder Woman stuff. People are like, let's bring back Lois. They prefer that. I feel like, I don't know, you're the Superman person. But like, they retcon that shit,
It was a fun story with the New 52 because it was a brand new universe.
Yeah.
And it at the very beginning of their relationship, they're like, oh, we're basically two gods. We're the two most different people on this planet. Why can't we be together? Type of thing.
Yeah.
Which was a compelling story at the time. But then there was a whole bunch of people like, that's not #not my Superman.
Yeah.
People just don't give things a chance sometimes. And I think it's stupid. But here, I think that, because I was even looking at her, because Trinity does give her real name, her full name, her first, middle, and last name in this book. And I was like, Marston, why does that sound so familiar? I looked it up. That's the last name of the creator of Wonder Woman. So I was like, is Marston the name of like her father? And because Prince is Diana Prince. So I was like, that's not giving me any hints to who the father is. So I mean, you could easily, I guess, if they haven't already confirmed it. If anybody knows, let us know. But you could definitely play on the fact that it might be Bruce's.
Yeah, for sure. Also, if you're going off of, I don't know if this is canonically true, but like Diana Prince, the way they do it in the movie is just made up because she's a princess, right? As like, she's a princess of Themyscira. So, Trevor is just all like, she's Diana Prince. And, instead of saying princess, whatever. So like, that's a play on words. So Marston could just be a made up name. And then it's revealed later on that like, oh yeah, it is so-and-so. Because I think a lot of people are automatically going to want this to be Trevor's, and so we'll see where it goes. But because that would be like, oh yeah, this is a way to keep it alive or keep his memory alive because he's human. So he's gonna die eventually. Or technically has already died, depending on what timeline they're going with that where he lived. So, anyways, so
Whoa,
yeah,
hold on. Somebody is making a theory that Maxwell Lord is the father.
oh, what? Why?
What the fuck? I have to read this later. I'm saving it. It's on Reddit.
Oh,
So I that is wild.
isn't that she
that's
killed him though, right?
yeah.
Yeah. That's fucking crazy. That's some fanfic shit there. That's like, oh yeah, like the abuse kind of shit. Anyways, moving on from that though. So we do open this up. They're meeting on a beach, which they're actually meeting on Paradise Island, which I think is really cool. Is Superman and Batman, but this is Damian Wayne and Jonathan Kent, right? So they're older now. I will say in this style of drawing, I kind of like Damian's suit. I've never been a big fan of the Batman 666 costume. And I know everybody really loves it. I don't know. I prefer a cape over a trench coat any day. So, because right now, this is Midnighter. This is just Midnighter. Just with pointy ears, you know? So,
Yeah.
like, it is what it is. I like that. Go for it.
Well, I was going to say, I really do like this older version of John because he
Yeah.
feels the suit a little bit more than he does now. And
Yeah.
it looks a lot better.
Yeah. And then we get the introduction of Trinity because they're waiting for her. They're like, it's rude, she's late or whatever. And then she's like fucking on a rock with splashy water.
The
like
Little Mermaid type of intro.
Yeah,
Boom.
essentially. And it says Trinity, you know, DC Comics presents Trinity. And they're kind of just like having banter. Like throughout this whole thing, he's like, you're late. You know, Barry being Batman, and he's like, how did I not see you? You know, that's what, you know, John is saying. And they're just kind of going back and forth. They're like, why are we here? And she's like, oh, well, you know, we were told never to come here, or all this kind of jazz, right? Because essentially she wants to know something. And there's a way, obviously, Paradise Island has all this god type of tech and like all this wonderful shit. So you have to go through trials to get to this person that will give her information that she wants.
Yeah.
And I thought this was kind of clever, a very interesting thing to do because it involves a way for the Trinity to help her. I believe they say in this book, like their parents have told them never to come here, or at least Diana has said to never come here. And so she's like, I know you guys would help me. And so they go to this first trial and it's all like, I need somebody for pain and somebody for fighting, and then I'll be the one for truth or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think they make a joke where it's like, oh, should Damian go first? He's like pain or whatever, right? And they're like, no, it should be Superman. And so Superman goes and he's like, I think he has to touch the hand of a statue, right?
Yeah, it's pain, skill, and then truth. And John touches the statue and they tell him you have to hold on. Like you can't just like do it once or whatever. You have to keep holding on. And he's like, oh yeah, it's, and like as he's talking, it's like, you know, really, really painful. He's like, hurry up, just go in. One thing I want to come across in the banter portion before we move on into the actual cavern. Did Trinity's dialogue sound a little off to you? I feel like it wasn't like, it definitely still sounded like she was a kid. So I don't know how old she is compared to Damian and John. But it just felt like she was more so like maybe early 20s, very like, kind of like it would be as if, and this totally is what it is, but it's as if Tom King was trying to write the dialogue of a Gen Zer, you know? And it very much felt like that to me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, she does sound like she's younger, and I think you need to differentiate that because you got to remember, Tom King's going to tell the story of Diana in Wonder Woman. He's not going to tell the story of Trinity, but he has come out and said that we might get like breadcrumbs of Trinity throughout the story, and we might even get a Trinity story here or there. But for the most part, you're going to be watching a Wonder Woman or reading a Wonder Woman story. And I think this, when we get to the end of it, I think is a great way to start it out, especially if this is breadcrumbs. But I think like, because the boys are already born. So they're going to be significantly older, at least 13 years. Because if we're saying that they're both 13, technically, John is technically, well, yes, but I'm talking in human years. He's technically still only 13 or 12, right? He turns 13 because he couldn't get into the Teen Titans, right? Because he wasn't a teen.
Yeah.
And so Damian is a year older than John, but John fucking jumped 7 years or whatever the hell that was. But on Earth, they're both 13. So they would at least be 13 years older than her.
Yeah.
So, if you're saying that this is like 20 years in the future, that means what? They're 30. They're 33 and she's 20. So that seems fair. But yeah, I think he was writing her like different. I want to say that I read a story recently. Oh, wait. Is it? I don't know if it's Tom King. Have you read book 2 of Brave and the Bold?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
I don't know if it's Brave and the Bold because I want to see it's Tom King that wrote it. Somebody wrote like an annoying young person recently, and I was like, oh, I fucking hate this. It wasn't Trinity though, and I'm just worried if it was in Brave and the Bold or not because I don't know if it was King, and I was like, I don't like the way King wrote that person. So I don't know, but I'm sure I'll come across it again in the future because I think it is something we're going to cover. But yeah, I didn't have a big problem with that. I figured it's a new character. We're going to find her voice, all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
So John has to go through this pain trial. And then this like Spartan woman comes out and is like, all right, who am I going to kill or whatever? And she's like, that's you, Damien, because I know you'd have fun with this. And he's like, all right. And so he goes and he starts fighting this Spartan woman, and he gets nicked a little bit in the face, or he gets punched or something like that. And he's like, he smiles. And he's like, all right, it's going to be fun. And so he's just going to be fighting this woman until the end of time, it seems like, because that's how, mythological shit is. And then she goes and she sees her quote unquote mother, and it's Diana. And she's like, I told you never to come here. Like, why are you coming here? All this kind of jazz. And she's like, I'm disappointed in you, essentially. And she was like, see, that's how I know you're not my mom, because my mom would never be disappointed in me. And then that's kind of how she breaks off. And she uses the first of 3 different lassos that she has.
Yeah.
So if she has the lasso of truth, do you think Diana is dead, or Diana has done something now to where she no longer needs to be Wonder Woman?
I think that she... See, I can't remember which one, because I believe Donna has a form. See, because I think Donna and Cassie both have different forms of a lasso. But I don't remember what colors they are, because if they were actually black, because I think black is the new one.
Yeah,
I think black is the new one, so it can't be either Cassie's or Donna's. So I don't know how many lassos there are out there. But I would assume at least one of them is either Cassie's or Donna's.
Well, is the black one new? Because isn't Batman uses a black lasso on Diana in Scott Snyder's run. So
does he?
Keep talking. I'll get the book because I have it.
Okay. Well, I just think that if she has all 3 lassos currently, I'm going to go ahead and assume, with how old the other kids are, now adults, I think there is a big chance that everybody is semi-retired.
Oh, it's a white lasso. So,
which is what she has.
Yeah. Well, yeah, she has one of them, yes.
Yes, she has the golden lasso.
But you were saying the black's
lasso.
the new one, right?
Yeah, and I think black is the new one.
Yeah.
But I think Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, Bruce, Clark, and Diana are somewhat retired, meaning that they still do heroism. They do heroic acts, but only when they're absolutely needed. Because I don't even think Bruce Wayne would allow 2 Batmans out there. Right?
Yeah.
In Gotham.
I mean, DC's allowing it, right? Yeah, in Gotham. I would agree.
In Gotham. So if Damian has that suit, I think Bruce Wayne has given him the mantle of Batman.
Yeah.
And
Here's the thing though, because Tom King's writing this. Is Damian Batman of Gotham? Because what about Helena? Because what if he's Batman of the world? You know what I mean? Like he does
Justice League
everything.
Batman?
Yeah, essentially he's Justice League Batman. She's Gotham Batman.
I would be okay with it.
Yeah. Because I just want to
that.
know where the fuck Damian is in Tom King's future. He's writing him here. So he's like, okay, I'm cool with Batman 666. And we read that one story where Batman 666 is inevitable, apparently, which totally shits on that story where he actually becomes the demon. So
which is a alternate Earth, I will say.
Yes.
Batman Beyond is an alternate Earth. So
but that story you read was every Damian everywhere always becomes Batman 666. Unless you're saying the demon eventually becomes Batman 666. I guess you could assume that, and it makes them both true.
Probably,
yeah. So I don't know, but I've always wanted to see where King was going to take, like, where's Damian? You know, because he says Nightwing becomes a detective. I don't know if did they show Barbara in that run at all?
No, they only showed Dick Grayson.
Because I've always said the real progression should be Barbara becoming commissioner. I've always liked that, which is in Batman Beyond. Dick Grayson, I don't know what I would prefer him to be. I don't really like him becoming a detective at the end of it all. I feel like if anybody does get a happy ending, it's Dick Grayson. You know, because he started off the shittiest out of all of them. Well, he's a mirror copy of Bruce, but if Bruce gets a bad ending, quote unquote, Grayson should get a happy ending. Unless you do the vice versa, where you would think Grayson should get a happy ending and he gets the worst ending, which would be death. Which would be kind of fucked up. Yeah. But I guess it also depends on how he dies, right? I think heroic deaths can be a thing. But you know, it is what it is. Anyways, so yeah, some interesting stuff going on there. But Trinity uses the Black Lasso on this fake Diana to defeat her. So I don't think they really go into the powers of what this is. Like, if I remember correctly. They don't really show what it does. I don't know if it's for pain or she just kind of uses it on her.
She says, it's not the gold that should concern you, Spirit. It's the black. And then you just see her like wrap it around her.
Yeah.
And she like, I don't know if it kills her instantaneously, but she's just like on the ground. Like, yeah, I'm not sure what it does.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll explain that in the future. I do like that she has 3 different ones, which I think is kind of cool. And then she goes and she meets this guy who we only ever see like his nose and his mouth, and he's talking to her, and he's all like, so you're here, you know, like he kind of expected her. And she's basically this whole conversation gets down to she wants to know who her father is, right? And that's kind of how it goes. And he's all like, well then let me tell you the story of how your mother defeated me. And so I'm curious on, I wonder if this is a theory. You think people are kind of thinking that this old guy that we never see is Maxwell Lord?
Well, she does say, seems like you do know me, your majesty.
Yeah, Lord. I guess somebody could build. That would be so weird. I don't know if I like King. Because then you have Diana hooking up with a villain. That happened somewhere in another story that I think people really fucking hate.
But hear me out. As fucked up as this would be, and I don't think people would like it.
Watchmen.
He has the power of manipulation.
Do we want to manipulate her into sex? That's really fucked up.
Well, I was very quickly looking through the comments on Reddit on that post. Maxwell Lord steals the magic clay, forms a child, and manipulates Trinity into believing that she is a child of Wonder Woman.
And so you think she's not the child of Wonder Woman?
I'm not saying this. I'm connecting dots that people have put out there on this Reddit post.
Interesting. Well, that's why a reason to read Tom King's Wonder Woman. So I thought this was a good way to lead into, if you're curious about who Trinity is going to be or who her family is, that's a good way to read Wonder Woman. And you're just like, okay, I want to know the story of how she was born now. And then from my understanding, I already like the perspective of what King said. It's like the government is going after Wonder Woman. And so, I don't know why I'm curious on why they would go after her. She seems to be like the fucking walking flag of America.
Yeah, she's an American icon, basically.
Yeah.
A worldwide icon.
Yeah.
But of course, America is always going to be like, oh, they're ours first. That's how America always looks at these heroes.
Yeah. So, pretty crazy stuff, but very, very interested in. Just got a notification that the Spurs selected Victor Wembanyama as number 1 overall pick. So we're good again. But anyways, moving on from that, I'm excited to read Batman. I don't even know Wonder Woman 101. Is this a monthly book, Wonder Woman?
I have not heard yet. I will actually get back to you guys next episode. I'll look at the solicits and see if this is something that is coming out monthly.
Definitely not bi-weekly, because we do have the books 2 weeks out and it's not there. So a lot of Dark Knight's Terror.
Yeah, that's going to be the summer event. So
yeah.
So I do think that it's quite possibly going to be a monthly, and King is probably using this time that like all the Night Terror stuff is happening to get as much issues as he can out for Wonder Woman.
Yeah. So very interesting. But moving on to anything important happen in Titans? Anything interesting? We'll just cover that real quick. And
Wally West has died.
Again?
But here's the kicker. It's a future version of Wally West. The current Wally West actually does show up in this issue. And Nightwing is very hesitant to let him help them on this crisis that ends up happening with like a forest fire. He's like, if you look at that body, forensics say that you had wood chips and smoke attached to you.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like a forest fire, boom, you would think, okay, something is going on there. And that's basically it as far as like the biggest intriguing thing. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the issue, they analyzed like the material, like the ground and the fire and the ash and whatnot. And Cyborg does come to a conclusion that what caused the fires was Tamaranian energy. So like, okay, well, if Starfire was with us the entire time, it could only mean, and then the book ends. And so I'm pretty sure it's gonna come to Blackfire.
Yeah. It would be funny if he just died like at a barbecue, like a pit blew up or something. He's like, I wasn't fast enough. But yeah, I don't know. I only know of Blackfire from Titans, which, dude, I heard that they went 4 for 4 on terrible finales. Eesh. That's crazy to have 4 bad finales. Talk about the definition of insanity, right?
Yeah.
Kind of crazy shit. But let's move on to, I think, a story that just doesn't miss, man. World's Finest is a great fucking book.
Yeah.
So good. Our theory, we were thinking that Supergirl might save Robin at the end of the episode because we knew he was about to crash into a wall. Because I think that would have been like a good way to kind of build their relationship more if they were going to have a little dating thing. But the Flash saves them, which I don't know why we didn't think about that. The Flash being obviously way faster. Well, I don't know about way faster than Superman, but I've never seen Superman go back in time. Well, except for that one movie where he turns the world back. But yeah. Other than that, the Flash saves him, which I think this is really cool. Obviously, Dan Mora killing it on art as always. And then kind of just the whole story here is technology has been taken over, right? So like seen it a million times in comics, technology taken over. They can't use anything. So that means basically all the bat gadgets and everything are useless right now. And what did they... New Mazo? Is that his name, right? New Mazo. New Mazo, and what is the Metamorpho? His new name. I forgot his new name.
I can't remember what he called himself.
Yeah, so we have New Mazo. Like, basically, it's just kind of like letting us know kind of how everything came about because we're learning.
Ultramorpho.
Ultramorpho, there you go. Very campy names, but they work in my opinion. We just basically get a lot of backstory on how the Metal Men were involved in this, like what happened, like when New Mazo took over all these people, like what was the whole concept, and like why did he go after billionaires and shit like that, right? So we learn a lot of that on top of seeing a lot of fighting. So there was like a lot of fighting. We got to see Hawkman fighting a bunch of Supermen, which surprised he could even put up a fight like against multiple.
Yeah, so these robot Supermen are canonically correct for anybody who is like, who are these guys?
Yeah.
They were created by Helix and by Superman. They are Superman's guards. Don't know why Superman would need guards, but it's also in case it's the idea. Hey, Superman cannot be everywhere at once. At a time, and so because of course he's had a super family now, he's kind of kept them on the back burner and doesn't really use them. Unfortunately, no one knew that AI would take over the world, and now they are out and fighting heroes. I did like this. You got to see like a little highlight of just random heroes popping up. We saw Plastic Man. Metamorpho actually fights a character that we're going to be introduced to in the DCU, that being GI Robot is going to be a part of Creature Commandos. And we see GI Robot for a split second. I thought that was pretty cool. But for me, I really love the interaction in this factory. All the prisoners coming up with this plan, Batman coming up with this plan to get rid of the inhibitor collars and then move forward with that. The fact that like he gets Ollie to be like, hey, this is what you're going to do with the Ultramorpho. And, that's when the plan is going to be executed. And he's like, this is going to out me as Green Arrow. You know this, right? Like, this is clearly something Green Arrow would do. And Batman is like, don't worry. Everybody's going to think I did it anyway.
Yeah. This is what I love about Batman is he knows he's so good that people would think he did it, but he still has the best people do the job.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I know you're the right guy for the job, but I'm so good. Everybody's going to think I did it. Like, I love like the slight of hand cockiness that's there, which I think is funny. But I like that he put everybody, the whole plan of like somebody breaking something, somebody sharpening it, somebody making the arrow for Ollie, and then Ollie's going to shoot it, which I think is really awesome. And this does obviously hit perfectly where it needs to go because he's Green Arrow. And he hits it in the chest of the Ultra Morpho guy. And he explodes essentially. And so this allows Superman to break his collar. He goes super speed and fucking takes off everybody else's collars, which I think is awesome. And then he's kind of like knocked out. He's just like, oh, I'm tired, And so I think that's kind of cool. And then the fucking rest of the Justice League shows up to help, which I love this panel. You got Green Lantern, you got Supergirl, you got Firestorm, you got Wonder Woman, you got Robin there, Metamorpho, and the Flash. And so they're all like, they're like, yo, Flash, help everybody out. And he's like, got it. He's doing his shit. Metamorpho starts talking to, I forget what his name is, the guy that created the Metal Men. He starts talking to him. And then Batman's kind of talking to everybody and trying to like come up with a plan, right? He's like, yo, I need you to go do this, Hal. Or like use they had these orbs. I forgot what the orbs were for. Because it's been a while since I read the book.
He said that they these miniature satellites, and they're like, well, why didn't you? Basically, the satellites is what controls all the AI robots. And he asks, I need to find his name. I know they say it in the very beginning. They ask, shit, what is his name? I know that
the creator of the Metal Men, right?
Yeah. Not Ivo, it's Magnus. Magnus is his name. Will Magnus. Magnus tells him like, oh, well, the Metal Men weren't affected because I programmed them to only take orders from me, basically. He's like, cool, that's what I thought. And he like tells Hal, hey, take all of these satellites and throw them into the freaking atmosphere. And Hal's like, These are the things that are controlling all the robots. Like, why would we do that? It's just gonna cause like mass hysteria and like probably control more if we're making this global.
Mhm.
He's like, and Batman's like, you don't worry about that. Just let me worry about that.
Yeah.
And we actually see Wonder Woman not flying herself, but using the invisible jet, which I
Yeah.
thought was very, very fun. Robin gets to team up with her. Robin almost gets sliced in half by some lasers. His cape actually gets cut in two. But
Yeah.
we learn that Tio Morrow actually helped Professor Ivo creating Ultramorpho and Numazo. And it gets to a point where we get back to where all the heroes were. And Batman's like, Supergirl, what are you doing? Like, shouldn't you be off doing something? And she's like, oh, yeah. And when Batman turns around, she starts to morph. I thought this looked like Clayface.
Yeah.
And then you turn the page and it's fucking Numazo.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's just like good comic book fun is what
Yeah.
that book is. I don't take it super serious, but it's good enough that I do take it serious, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
And like nothing's really happening in it that I'm just all like very nitpicky about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Batman's doing cool shit in it, which is what I love. It stays true to Batman. He's not doing anything silly or wacky. And Superman, I just love seeing all the heroes together. Like it's really cool.
I think so. In talking, going back to the conversation of our last podcast, like comics versus manga and how comics should be written and everything else, this is the exception to the rule that we have made for how we want comics to be, because this is storytelling long form as far as like the numbering, because this isn't a set miniseries. This is an ongoing series.
Yeah.
But Mark Waid has separated the arcs so well that I know when one story ends and one story starts and one story ends, and I can take that as it is and have fun with that story, and then I can move on to the next story and have fun with that story. And it's so inconsequential to the greater DC universe that I'm having this pocket full of fun and I'm okay with it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not super worried about like, how does this connect to Action Comics? How does this connect to Detective Comics? You know, it's just a really fun story.
Yeah. Do you think you could go? I don't think you could. You'd have to reset the whole universe. But I'm wondering if like, you think if they got a team of people to come like go through a lot of the best stories throughout DC history, and they could be like, this is all the canon that matters, and they put like a logo, like let's just say it was like a C with a kind of logo, and that like if that was on the book, that was canon, and they just reprint them. Do you think that could work? So like you're saying like Killing Joke is canon, Hush is canon, and granted, some of those things might contradict each other, but it's like you have to think it. You could probably put that like at the start of the book, right? Like the way canon works is, and then explain it. Like, although something may be contradictory, this is stuff that's happened throughout the universe. Some stories may take place over the course of a year, but other stories have happened in between that are consequential, like linear to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that might be a new way to try to do something. Because like you could easily put like, oh yeah, Mark Waid's shit canon, or if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I'd be curious because like I feel like they need to try something, because they're never gonna restart. They're never gonna just like wipe the slate clean and you're gonna tell a new like Bruce Wayne story from day one. You're not gonna do that.
No, they're never gonna do that. The New 52 was the closest thing to it. And I think more so they need to kind of perfect their way of storytelling the way that Marvel has. Marvel has had several reboots, but they've made it all canon and it all makes sense because they've written stories in a way that like, hey, we're going to reference this story, but it's only because of this story that we're telling, not necessarily because this is going to change the way that you see Spider-Man or the way that you see Daredevil from here on out. It's just a small reference. And I don't know, it just makes sense over there. Here, as far as DC, we've never had Jim Lee or editors sit down at a conference at San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con or uh what is the Boston Comic-Con or the C3 Comic-Con or whatever it's called.
Oh yeah.
I just want DC to be able to sit down and tell their readers, hey, this is what we as a collective see as canon and as important stories to each of these individual characters and the greater DCU.
Yeah.
Because I just think it would make more sense that way.
I agree. Yeah, I don't know, man. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think there is some good comics there. I talked about this on Twitter. I don't know how you feel about it. But like if I didn't have this podcast, I wouldn't look up shit, honestly. Because I don't do it for anime. Like I do follow one anime, like Animafax or something like that or whatever, or Anime Zone or some shit, where they just like new season starts this time, but they're not like, oh, it was just revealed in the manga that so and so is gonna do this, so can't wait for 5 years from now when the anime does. You know what I mean? I don't do any of that shit. Like the way we do for movies, right? Like we see a photo, we analyze it, we talk about it. Like I was just watching the new season of Demon Slayer last night, already hooked. I'm just like, God, this show's fucking good. But I don't look up shit for Demon Slayer. Like I don't care. Like I've seen like snippets of the episodes and I'm just like, I don't fucking care. I don't want to see it. I'll watch it when I watch it. And so like, I don't know. I feel like if I didn't have this podcast, comics may be a little bit more enjoyable. A little bit. Because like I will still say the Batman shit we've gotten in the last few years is kind of garbage.
Well, I will say this in the sense of when Batman News Weekly started, I still had a podcast that was going over all of mine and my co-host's favorite books.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Superman stuff, a lot of Justice League stuff, a lot of stuff that wasn't Batman.
Yeah.
We've stopped that podcast for quite some time now. And then I am just recently with this whole Dawn of DC starting to get into more of those comics.
Mm-hmm.
Those comics are a lot more enjoyable than I'm not talking about them every freaking week.
Yeah. Because I think when you have to talk about something, you probably get a little bit more hypercritical of it. Now, granted, I don't want people to think like, oh, so y'all are just being extremely critical because you have a podcast. Like, no, that's not the case. I would still say Zdarsky's books suck, even if I wasn't, especially if I was buying that shit. If I was buying that shit every single week, and I'm like, bro, like this book sucks.
Honestly, I like in retrospective of what Williamson and everybody else is doing in the Superman books compared to what we're seeing in Batman, it's leaps and bounds of different. I'm reading Superman, I'm just like, oh, this is so fucking crazy, this is awesome. Like I don't know, we had a small discussion in the Discord about it when it first happened. Superman is a god now. I don't know if you've seen this or not.
I saw it in the spoiler chat.
It's absolutely wild what they've done to Superman. And the argument should be like the way it has been of like, oh, Superman's too powerful, he's boring, blah, blah. He is literally too powerful now. And it's still the most interesting story that I am reading currently at DC.
Interesting. I would love to have that with Batman, but we used to have Detective to get us over, and they're both bad. I wonder when Ram V is gonna get off, because I think we need some fresh blood. I want to see a female writer on. We had Tamaki, so I should say.
I wonder if Night Terrors will be the buffer from where DC is like, hey, this event is gonna come up, so this is gonna be your last issue, and we'll put a new writer on it after. But again, I think solicitations have come out for like after the Night Terror stuff. So I'll need to double check.
I don't think he's getting off anytime soon. I feel like we would have had an announcement of that. I think we need some fresh blood on both books. I don't mind the book staying monthly because that just gives me longer to write a story. I am writing a 4-page Batman story right now. To just try to, I'm considering it like this will be my Batman 1000 story. Because that's coming up. I mean, it's 98 issues away, 97. I mean, it's still like 4 years, 5 years, something like that. If I do the math right, it's 12 issues a year. Well, now they're probably skipping. Well, I don't know. Is it still going to be Batman? It's not even going to be Batman 137 or 38, right? They're just skipping June and July. So like Batman's taking 2 months off.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So so I don't know how it's gonna work, but so that's already 2 months off, and there's gonna definitely be gaps in between that, I'm assuming. So Batman 1000 probably not happening for another at least 5 to 7 years, probably, which is crazy. But you gotta have that story ready to go. So I've been writing random shit like that. But yeah, I don't know, man. Crazy stuff. I wish Batman would be good. But we'll see. At least we got. I mean, I gotta say we've had little things here and there.
Yeah.
That have been pretty solid, but who knows? But that is going to be it, ladies and gentlemen, for this podcast. Clay, you got anything going on this week?
This upcoming week over at Star Wars Alliance, we're going to be starting our retros for Rebels in preparation for the Ahsoka series coming in August. We are going to be reviewing every single season of Rebels, not one after the other, but we're planned it all out. We're doing some book reviews that kind of go over the character of Thrawn, so make sure to stay tuned for that. And July 5th, a new book called Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade, which is about one of the first Inquisitors ever manipulated and created in the Star Wars canon. I've gotten an advanced copy of it. I'm almost finished with the book, and I can't say much other than it is quite possibly the best Star Wars book I have ever read. So be on the lookout for that review July 5th.
Nice. I have just been streaming. If you follow us in Discord and if you're in my Discord and you go check the announcements section, I have been posting what we're going to be doing future streams. So if you want to see, there will be bonus streams in between that if I have time. But for the most part, I've been trying to plan out every stream. Starting in July, I'm not really going to be doing editing for my job anymore. I'm going to be doing a lot more other shit. So I'm going to be able to finally focus just on my new channel when it comes to editing. So I'm excited for that. But I'm swamped right now with so much shit to edit that I'm just like, fuck. So I'll be doing that pretty much all the time. But definitely come by and hang out on one of the streams. But that's going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. As always, he is Fanboy Clay. I am Juice Wayne. And remember, Batman is awesome.
News Weekly.